Welcome, my name is Chris Harrison. Welcome to the LDAR 247 final presentation of the semester that we are calling Broadening the Narrative from Confederate Monuments to Inclusive Unifying Public Spaces. This project is, in a nutshell, it is about coming up with a concept to replace a Confederate monument that was removed from the town of Warrenton, North Carolina. More than that, though, and I think, and hopefully you'll see this embodied in the projects and the work, for us, it is more about how do you create spaces that are unifying, that respect all people. So to create spaces that are welcoming and where people don't feel excluded, it's kind of the challenge. And how do you do that? We also engage in a 4-step community engagement design process. The first step being to connect, the second step being to understand, third to create, and fourth to deliver. And the purpose of this 4-step community engagement design process is so that you're designing with and not just for a community. This is really derived from Ornstein's ladder of citizen participation. Thank you, Steve. Really coming from the bottom, you see what this ladder represents. Is really how involved the community is in the design process and the decision-making process of their space. So at the bottom, we have therapy and manipulation. You don't want to be there. No designer wants to be there. That's really when a designer comes into a community and just kind of plops their idea upon them without having any real interaction or connection with them or dialogue. At the top, we have citizen control and delegated power and partnership is where we want to be, where citizens are part of this design process and hopefully foster it, and it's also more representational of the diversity of the community. And again, the goal of this is to create inclusive public space expressive of the diversity and richness of the community. In this instance, Warrenton, North Carolina, but really any community in which we are working. So the project site is located in Warrenton, North Carolina, just northeast of us, and in Warren County. It's just central to the seat of Warren County, kind of centrally located in both the county and in the city. The site is actually a little bit less than ½ acre. It is currently the municipal courthouse, an active courthouse for the site, but also it's the small town's public green space. It's a primary park space, and again, kind of centrally located in the middle of the town. We were also asked to look at a portion of, get this pointer to work out here, a lot that burnt down this parcel that's currently vacant. The town is looking at potentially turning it into a pocket park, but they asked us also to look at it, including it into our design process for the memorial that was removed here from the site. So again, here's some pictures of the statue being removed, and this happened in, I believe, 2020. The pedestal base was not initially removed. It kind of stood around a little bit. I guess a couple of months ago it was removed. And now we have the courthouse, shot of the courthouse with the monument that used to be there no longer with the vacant space. In order to respond to this vacant space and the removal of this Confederate monument, a courthouse square committee was formed. And the goals of this committee were to study the courthouse square site, to consider monument-based options, to coordinate community engagement, and to identify replacement options, and ultimately to make recommendations for what can be on the site. And if folks are just joining us too, I'm also recording this, so I'll make sure at the end of this, folks have links to the recording. Okay. The computer. Okay, so here's an image of the folks from the committee standing upon the base of the monument that was recently removed that approached us. So the first step of this process, of this design process, is to connect. And the initial connection was made by the committee with the town, where they held many community meetings, public meetings held in each of the 5 commissioner districts of the area. Additionally, they created a digital survey, because this was during COVID. They created a digital survey with over 300 responses, which was really instrumental for us as far as feeding us and helping us understand what was going on with the site and what people wanted. And what we discovered through this was that most people wanted the base removed, and it ended up getting removed, and something else in the space. But there was a dynamic spectrum of responses. Ranging from regret and cynicism of loss of this Confederate monument to folks who felt unified and hope and progress and future. And where we were kind of in the middle of trying to figure out how do we bridge the gap between these factions and to create a space that's inclusive for everybody as best we can, which is more challenging than you might think. As part of our discovery, this is a word cloud that was created in the frame and the shape of the Warren County. Unity kept on coming up. There were several words that came up, but this is just showing the words that were most frequent. So unity was a very important concept that kept on coming up, the idea of monument, of hope, of strength, of a work of art, community, and peace. So from this, the things that were most occurring were populated into graphic to kind of help guide our design decisions. That's a Paul thing. Thank you, Paul. As part of this connection process as well, the committee reached out to North Carolina A&T State University, our landscape architecture program here, to take all of this wonderful information and decipher it and to come up with some concepts of what this space could be. And this is us at the site visit before the monument that pedestal was removed. So phase two is to understand, and understanding for us is really our analysis. And what we wanted to do was take a step back and look at it more macro level before we jump into the more micro level of analysis. And what we discovered is that Warrenton was incorporated in 1779 and named after a revolutionary war patriot, Dr. Joseph Warren. It was once one of North Carolina's wealthiest towns from approximately 1840 to 1860, with an economy based largely upon cotton, tobacco, and slave labor during that time. Here's a timeline kind of depicting this. In 1779, the foundation of the corporation of the town. In 1840 to 1860, kind of one of the wealthiest times in the town's history. During that time in 1860, it had a population of about 1,500 folks compared to today of about 800 folks. We also discovered in our research that Warren County, or Warrenton specifically, is the birthplace of the environmental justice movement, which was really really important for us to highlight. The NAACP staged a massive 500+ person protest in order to stop a landfill of toxic waste that was being put on the site. Though they lost this battle, it created a ripple effect, not just for our area, but really for our nation. And what it did, it shed light upon the fact that everybody should have and that when we put bad things that are harmful to people, we need to be cognizant of all people. And the things that we wouldn't want near our children, we shouldn't want near other people who don't have a voice or are in poverty. So this is very, very important for us and fundamental, I think, and part of Warrenton's history. So today, Warrenton today, so the population is about 833 people. It's split about half and half between males and females, about 394 males, which is 47.3% of the population, and 439 females, about 52.7% of the population. The median resident age is about 57 years old, and the median income is about $28,000 a year, $29,000 a year. The population is also split, interestingly, about between 50% between white and black, approximately 47.6% white and 43.1% black. The Hispanic population is about 3.7%, and folks reporting two or more races, like myself, are about 4.1. The American Indian, the strong Halawasa Nation, constitutes about 1.1% of the population. And then there's a small minority population of Asians that represent about 0.2% of the population. And what you see in the graphic is a picture of an aerial drone photo of a festival, the spring festival that happens there annually, at least before COVID, in 2017. So showing the space already being used as an event space other than just the municipal use that it's primarily used for. So here are some currently programmed events coming through the year. So in December, they had the Prelude to Christmas Festival. In April, there's a Spring Festival. Through April and December, when it's nice enough, they have programmed movie events. In September, there's an African American Cultural Festival that occurs. And in October, there's a Harvest Market that occurs. So it's already actively being used and also becoming more expressive of the diversity of the community that exists there. So it's already beginning to happen. But very much this space functions as Warrenton's downtown public park. We also discovered through our analysis that Lake Gaston and Lake Kerr are very important facets of the natural richness of the county itself. Though interestingly, it also creates kind of a dichotomy because a lot of the folks that have money live along the water's edge where people don't. But still is a very important part of the natural history and natural environment of the area and culturally to the folks that live in Warren County. So after kind of doing a larger, more macro analysis, we then jumped into a more micro analysis of the site. So now we're kind of zooming in and looking at the archetype and the architecture of the church that was erected in the late 1700s and then expanded upon in the 1900s. Also, you'll see some flagpoles here that the town recently installed and wanted to kind of keep. Interestingly as well, there are two beautiful water fountains that are not functional, but vestiges of this era of segregation. These were actually culturally segregated water fountains that still exist on the site that weren't removed with the monument. Next to the historic porch troughs that exist beside it. And that's kind of the front entry as you come in this main circulation path into the courthouse. There's also a clock tower that is not as old, but certainly historically significant and indicative of the archetype of the community. Other really important components of the site that we discovered. This idea of patterns that bind. There's a strong quilt pattern heritage in Warren County in general. And these quilt patterns you see are specific to Warrington. And they actually created an art memorial that they had clad on the back of the building here. The actual pieces have been taken away and taken down, but the information plaque still stands. We're very, very important for many of our designs in guiding us. There's also a whisper flower for children, an interactive art piece that exists here in the corner as well. And there are two existing memorials that, besides the Confederate memorial, there's a World War II memorial that exists on the site here, and then also the Detective Weatherly memorial that exists on the site here. Another vestige of segregation or of slavery. Again, this has been a space, the public green, for a long, long time in the area. So, as part of this as well, we have a slave bell, an auction bell. So we were told as part of the cultural memory of the site that when slave auctions were held and when they would commence and end when a slave was sold, that this bell was rung and is still standing in the green and in front of the courthouse. And we thought it was important to bring light to that and talk about that as part of our analysis. You'll also see a picture across the street of that vacant site I was talking about. The portion of it that burnt down that is just green now, relatively flat, that they want to try to utilize, which exists here. I'm also taking some pictures again of the archetype, just the light fixtures, and trying to get a sense of what the furniture and architecture looks like on the site. Here we have a key analysis diagram, kind of visual plan view, depicting many of these elements, showing flow lines. So this is kind of relatively flat where the memorials are, the main monument was. But showing flow lines and about a 6-foot grade elevation change here in the low point that occurs in the southwest of the site. The red arrows are depicting vehicular circulation. The blue are depicting pedestrian circulation. The dark red arrow is depicting this is Highway 401, a major thoroughfare leading to 85, and which is also their main street. And as part of our analysis, we discovered that there are major, large trucks that come through here on a regular basis, and many accidents caused because of that. So part of what we all discussed in class was in some way rerouting traffic around the space to make it more conducive to families and just make it feel better. But that's why this is a darker area and it's important. We also discovered there's about 23,000 square feet of permeable landscape space and about 10,000 square feet of non-permeable space, and that the area is business, neighborhood business, and is in a humid tropical climate like we are here in Greensboro. So then phase 3, my favorite phase, the creation phase. So we took all this information, we looked at these pieces a lot in groups initially, and we had our first presentation, our conceptual presentation, where the kids broke up in groups and did a lot of this work and started conceptualizing. Then they split apart and worked on their own individual designs that they will share with you here in a moment. So with that, I will pass it off to the first group, MOC Design Lab, and I'll ask Megan to come to the flower.
Okay.
You got to get kind of close to this trip. Sorry.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Maurer, and I guess I'm going to be the spokeswoman for MOC Design Lab. That's with Sierra and Octavia. So our project challenge and thesis statement. Oh, Hi, committee. This too. So our design intention to replace the monument is to create a piece that Chris said that unifies both the committee and community visions into a design that reflects justice, unity, and hope. The committee was really interested in incorporating the community's natural resources, so water features, stone, even like native plants in the area. And while it's the new centerpiece of the courthouse square, we wanted to incorporate other new elements to encourage community participation and education. Okay, so my ideas for quilting the community, Chris mentioned the history of quilting in the community, and I wanted to bring in water elements, so I did like a blue and brown quilt design throughout the site. And we all picked precedents to study beforehand and apply to our site. So I picked the North Carolina Botanical Garden. It's in Chapel Hill. It's a larger site than what ours is, but it's also publicly funded. And I really liked their open program elements, so nothing is set in stone, like this isn't for this. It's just really fluid and flexible, which I thought was really important for Warren County to use because it's a civic square, and I didn't want it to be so strict with what could happen there. Just keep it really flexible. This is my first concept where the main fountain was, monument. I put a water feature there with the quilt design incorporated, and I wanted to run the brick throughout the site. The sidewalks surrounding the site are all brick already. Just plant some native plants around it, just kind of a serene place, but when you're looking through it, you can still see directly to the courthouse, so you still have that view. My second concept was to add a garden in the southwest corner. Has like probably some of the best light on the site, just a native garden, a rain garden where Chris was talking about the water flow, just to give people a place to sit and relax and support the pollinators in the area. This is my illustrative master plan. So I guess I could use this little thing. This is where that original monument was. So I kind of kept the same walkway just for budget purposes, so we don't have to rip anything out, and a stone seating area. And then this is the quilt design that repeats throughout the site. And this is where the water feature is. So it's kind of just like a flowing water, and you can see straight through to the courthouse. And back here is our pollinator garden with a quilted walkway. And then they wanted a spot kind of informal where people can hold like educational events and talks. And I just wanted to give people another place to sit if they wanted to. And I got the stone seating circle idea from the bog garden. And then in this empty lot over here, just because I like to hold so many festivals and maybe movie nights again, I wanted to give people a place to take their kids, because I'm assuming that I'm about to have one, so they're going to need somewhere to run things off. So, and I also wanted to emphasize that intersection he mentioned and put a more prominent walkway across, so like families can safely cross directly from the courthouse as opposed to having to go through two intersections. Oh, where'd my picture go? Oh, let's see. So this is the corner looking from Main Street and I think Macon directly to the courthouse. And this was my perspective looking through the water feature to the front of the courthouse with the stone seating. And my intention was to use that marble slab that they removed to help just add seating there, but I don't know if that's doable now. And then we did see some people out when we visited that day walking their dogs, so people do like to walk their dogs in the area. This is that whisper flower, and this is just the beginnings of a pollinator garden. So I did the muley grass in the corner where the water would flow down and just more native perennials all throughout. And I added a dogwood for the state flower of North Carolina. And here's my third perspective. So we have the walkway crossing the street, and then the playground. So I incorporated that quilt design on a fence to try to help keep the kids in. And because there's restaurants around, I added some picnic tables. So if people wanted to get to-go food, they could go there and sit. And I tried to keep everything with that blue theme. Oh, I'm done. Oh, well, here's my cost breakdown. So everything ended up totaling about $325,000 with an annual maintenance of about $1,400 to $1,500. Thanks.
Here's a final response for.
So everybody knows we broke up into two teams because there's not enough time for all of us. So Preston and Jeff are going first.
Is it what? Or use the mouse?
Okay.
All right.
Good. Let's go back to your illustrative practice.
There that goes.
So overall, it seems like a good concept. You've paid attention to the movement through the space that was existing, kind of playing on how things are going, nothing major in terms of rerouting traffic through the site. I do like the idea that you've carried that quilt idea through the pavement, through everything. Biggest concern that jumps out at me right away is a diagonal crossing on what Chris was saying was the busiest street with the big trucks. That type of thing would really slow down traffic in terms of having to stop all 4 ways. So yeah, that's a big concern. Obviously, it is something that has to be addressed because part of your site is across the street like that. But I didn't know if you had any ideas for if it was even explored in your traffic calming ideas to kind of lend itself leading up to that intersection.
Oh, I don't think they've come up with anything. I just thought if I put that there, maybe people would stop using it as much.
Okay.
Because it was really loud too.
Yeah. Big trucks. That can get pretty loud. But I do like that you have area playground and kind of addressed special programming throughout all aspects. Preston?
So I see these ideas on this page here, and I almost see like 3 concepts that you present to a client separately that they could choose from. You ever heard the advice of when you got to a party, call your jewelry on, but take almost everything but one piece off? I think in this case, that would be my impulse relative to the quilt, in that it's such a strong statement that I think I would choose one special location to really kind of maximize its effectiveness. And if it was spread out across different things, I want them to be connected. And so the perspective that you showed where you're looking through the water was my favorite adaptation of that idea. And I feel like other areas where you've used it with the crosswalk, I feel like that's the statement. And that those other pieces are strong enough on their own that they don't need that really special treatment. And as far as like precedents, I find that a lot of students gravitate towards botanical gardens as a precedent. And I think from a planting perspective, the NCBG was a great move. But when I look at this, I see the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts in Richmond. And a lot of times if you're setting up a space that almost have like these exhibits in it, to me that's an art museum. And art museums have gotten really savvy about programming their sites to be almost like an outdoor museum. And so I encourage you, if you were to pursue this project a bit further, have a look at like what different art museums do with their landscape, with their public art pieces. This perspective to me, I'm not a big fan of water in the landscape. I've had to come repair too many fountains or come up with solutions for fountains. I know I'm working about 2 on my desk right now. I think this is strong enough without the water. And I'm just not sure that moving in the 21st century, water fountains is going to be part of the future programming as water becomes a scarce commodity. But when I put my thumb over that water, and I'm just like, I love this gateway using the quilt. I think that's the idea that I would buy.
Thank you.
We have 1 more minute.
Oh.
That's somebody else wants to make a.
Additional comment?
I have a question. How did you sort of arrive at the budgeting part of it? Is there a set budget, because you had mentioned something for budgetary purposes?
Well, I was just kind of thinking if we could reuse materials that were already there, it would be better for that and less wasteful instead of having to throw things away. But we didn't have a strict budget, but Chris gave us a spreadsheet that we could input materials we used, and we kind of I just Googled things and kind of picked a ballpark figure for what I thought something would cost, and we did it that way.
Good. I'm just curious.
Mm-hmm. No, they said no budget so far, but we'll have to keep that in mind if things can be reused instead of thrown out.
All right, thank you very much. All right, next. All right, Sierra. The button right here, a little closer. Just hitting the button here, and then the other one is that right there to make it. Yeah, in a second.
Hi, I'm Sierra, and this is my project. Solidarity Square is the title of it. So my precedent study was the Depot Park from Gainesville, Florida, and I chose this because I liked how they used historical aspects of the actual train thing. Like as you can see here, they turned the sign into they turned the structure into the sign, and I just thought that was a good thing because for our project, we really want to focus on the history of the site, and also the fact that they wanted to encourage longer visiting times and make people want to stay longer in the area, which is something that they wanted in Morton as well. They wanted to have more nightlife and just bring more life to the town. So for the project vision statement, this is just a little graphic that my group had made, and basically I wanted to focus on having the history of the site be implemented, but also modernizing it at the same time. So just Wait, what? I put the whole thing up.
Oh, that was a girl.
Well, there's a button there that if you push it goes all the way to the end.
Okay, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is
Yeah,
this right?
yeah, that's what it
I'm
is.
sorry, y'all. Okay, this is my first party and concept. This was my second concept, and I just put all of them there because, well, from the beginning, I kind of misinterpreted, so I was doing them as individual elements more than I fixed it later, you'll see. But, I don't know what to do, I'm sorry. Okay, this is the third one. And so this party is actually the one that I ended up trying to make my master plan connect to once I understood that. So this is my master plan, and I'm just gonna go to the next slide because it's really far away on the first slide, but. So I just have some photos showing some inspirational imagery of what in the areas that it's pointing to. Oh my gosh, I maybe we'll start this. Okay. So the top one is I wanted to do a broken chain kind of shaped overlay. So that photo kind of inspired me that like there would be like, it's kind of similar to the photo. And then the second one is a pond. And the third one is tiles. So for the actual like the main walkway, I was thinking it could be something like that. But the reason it has different colors and shapes is because those are some of the quilt patterns that they have, which I have a photo of that later. These are just some more things. So for the sidewalk, I kind of wanted it to be, well, I guess just look at it. I don't want to take too long, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I'll just explain the second one for this because it kind of like doesn't make obvious sense by looking at it, but basically I was looking into like symbolism for Native Americans because they do have a Native American tribe, Pony tribe there. And so one of the things that I found was the broken arrow was a symbolism for peace. So I was thinking like that could be a fountain in the back. And this is my first perspective. And this is my second perspective.
Sarah, congratulations, wow, you have so many beautiful ideas shared with us, it's just fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really love like the broken chain idea, the puzzle pieces, the broken arrow, the quilt patterns, you really picked up a lot of key elements. I think that there's a couple of things about the sort of presentation that I think will be helpful for you in the future. Like for instance, you showed us your concepts, but I would have loved to have heard just a little bit more about it. I know you were a little bit embarrassed, like, well, I didn't quite get that this was all one thing, and you were like working on the individual pieces. But honestly, we all do that, right? We're always like getting down into the trees, and then it's like, wait, there's a whole forest here, you know. And so it's always, you know, going in and trying to understand the details, but then how do all the details fit into a, you know, because it's all one thing, right? It's an experience that we're trying to create. So it's not just the individual pieces we're creating, but it's a whole step. It's like a stage, right? So that people can come and have this amazing experience together, you know, as a community. So, you know, symbols like the broken chain and the puzzle pieces, like we're all the pieces of the puzzle, right? Those are all really beautiful how you really put that together. And I can definitely see how people would start to feel like, okay, I'm understanding how these pieces that you've put into the landscape that start to tell a story, right? The other thing about your presentation, especially like at the very end, I know you were a little conscious of time and so forth, but to be able to give your audience some context in terms of, okay, so my first perspective is looking from this corner towards the courthouse. So rather than just like, there it is, tell a little story so that your audience goes, oh, I know what that is. Like, I understand what I'm looking at there, instead of just, well, there it is. You know, the there it is part is if you create a board and people are just looking at it in the hallway. But when you have an opportunity to speak, use that opportunity, you know, with a clear message of, you're looking from here to there, and what you're seeing is this, and the reason why is because I wanted to give this sense of, you know, movement through the space and these broken pieces of the chain and so forth. And if you start to tell that story, then people start to see that more clearly in your graphic work. And then the combination of your graphic work and your storytelling helps people go, oh, I can see what that would be like. I can start to feel out my own self, right? And that's part of the sort of salesmanship, I guess you call it, of a designer, is to share your concept clearly enough that someone goes, whoa, cool. Like, wouldn't that be a cool thing experience in the landscape. Hopefully those are some helpful things for you to, as you know, this, I realize that you're early in all this, but you really have some beautiful ideas. Congratulations.
Yes, sure. You did it. No, you did it. You did it. You did it. I really appreciate some of your artfulness, right? I mean, you know this before, I'm a super fan of your parties. I think they're little tiny works of art. And I can sort of see your creativity coming out in your perspective drawings. And I can really see it coming out in your plan, right? You have lots of awesome ideas, right? I would just say something Rustin said cracked me up, right? Put all your jewelry on and then figure out which one looks the best and take them all pieces off except for like, you know, 1 or 2, which is great, right? Because there's so many good ideas and it's so hard to decide on which ones are sort of working together and what translates together and da, da, da. So I'm glad that they're all up there, right, for everyone to pick from. And that's one of those things that's, you know, for next time when you have that out there, maybe, you know, make some fake dice and roll it in there and figure out which 2 work or which 3 work together and then go with that. But I really think that your creativity came out in this and your personality came out in this and your sensitivity to the site and what, you know, the stakeholders had said that they're looking for in the history really just blossomed. So great job.
Well, we were doing the 3 of us, is that okay?
Oh, you almost.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. So, first thing, you know, right up front, great, and everyone should follow you. Stand away from the podium. You know, you like Steve Jobs, you're standing in front of your image, which you should always do. Often you won't have that really cool thing in back, but you should still do what you just did, and if you had to, you could put your phone right here so you can see your slides. And you're, I think, really effective to have a title that connects to what you're doing, not just metaphorically, but actually, that solidarity, and then you're showing multiple different symbols of solidarity with each other. That is really important. And also a precedent that actually relates to what you're trying to achieve.
I love that, by the way. That was brilliant. Historical connection, longer visiting times.
Yeah, there's some good aspects you were pulling out of that.
Yep.
Not so much, it doesn't necessarily need to be the place, but some of the things that are so good.
Don't worry. We'll get it later, don't worry about it. It's all good, it's volunteer plan. So, first, because I think this is a really important discussion that Preston and Dallas brought up, this question of, do you put on all your jewelry and then take off all at once? The challenge, though, is that if you're looking to actually represent diversity, you can't represent it with a single thing. You actually are going to, if that's one of your goals, you're going to end up having a diversity of elements, which I think is what you were trying to do. So I mean, you can look to like Japanese and Chinese garden history, where gardens filled with many different individual artistic items, but then you weave it together. So let's say you could decide that your puzzle pieces or these angular green walkways, something that is going to be consistent across the whole design, so that it's all one place, even if there are 3 or 4 different cultural or historical experiences. And then last, I just suggest, and this would go for everybody, so it's not, you know, not go just to you. The best way to tell a story is to walk people through the experience. So when, you know, I arrive after going grocery shopping, I come up on the corner of Main Street and I enter walking along the puzzle pieces and think about the different pieces that make up my town. When I reach water with a broken arrow, and I think about the fact that my home was actually built on Native American land. So you walk people through it. It also gives you, I know you like to write, right? So you can write a story and then tell it, rather than kind of being stuck having to try to figure out how to explain so much quickly. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah. Cool. Well done.
Thank you all for the awesome comments. Yeah. Octavia. Like this, like that. This right here is a little shining. That's that way. That's you change the slide right
Hello, everybody. I'm Octavia Coleman. This is my project on Courthouse Square. My president was Malibu Lumberyard. I chose this president because this up here, the first picture, it was like a warehouse, an abandoned warehouse, but they turned it into like this beautiful plaza. And I felt that for Warrenton County, they kind of wanted to turn their courthouse from this old kind of nobody hang around to this space everyone could come to, and make it more open, like this is my first concept. Let me explain. What I was doing the project, the courthouse, I wanted to keep it kind of the same aesthetic, like kind of the same vibe as the courthouse. So I didn't change too much, but I wanted to add elements to make sure people feel more welcome. So my first concept was kind of make a fountain for them with the Warrenton sign. It's kind of the layout of Warrenton County. That's what it is. I wanted to put it on the fountain, like little encryptions on it with some lights. And then over here was just kind of an area to sit and eat and just enjoy themselves. For my second concept, it was a design, a folding hands design. I was gonna make a folding hand statue. It was gonna be right here. I kind of decided I wanted it to be a tall statue like they had at the beginning, or medium-sized statue. But basically, this will represent the different diversities in Warrenton County, so everyone can feel togetherness. My third concept, a lot of trees, and this was their memorial. I was going to make this a memorial garden, kind of a circle. It was a circle concept for, circle bring unity. So I wanted to keep that story going on. And also right here, I just changed the statue. It was going to be these goals.
I'm sorry. Over time on the plans. Okay.
So these are kind of be like gold circles, but they're going to be huge. Like huge goals stacked up with different sizes, stacked up to about, I don't know how tall, pretty tall. Those little encryptions on it, like scriptures, maybe the town like come up with, or something that inspires them, so everybody can input. And also this open area is going to be like a park area, just for seating and relaxing. So my master plan, I kind of combined different elements from all three of my concepts into one. So right here, you see this is the water feature, and I kind of play with the pavement a little to have different walking areas. Also, I added seating in the back of the space, and on the side, and up here. This is the memorial garden. I kept this the memorial garden. I put the World War II memorials right here. And over here, I kept this as a park area, just an open area. I also added lights. You'll see, I added lights to this, to the courthouse, because when we went, it wasn't any lights in the area, and it was pretty dark. So I had a nice night lights. My perspective. This is like kind of the front of the courthouse. I created with benches and like little trees, little shrubs for the walking area, and this would be like a welcome sign for the perspective of my water feature. And for the seating, I kept it, I wanted to do a modern and keep it a little historical. That's why it's different benches right here. So two wooden benches. These kind of modern stone seating areas by the water. Nice. I'm sitting gate in case they're waiting for Courthouse like that. And I made some right here you see how I created the water garden. It's kind of like a little water feature right here too. Little tiny spring. Just like a kind of open park area. So I did this, I wanted to keep it open with the different seating. Because I wanted you to be able to, since this is across the street, I wanted to be able to see, like see the water things. I want to be able to see the water in case you want to, like, anything goes on. And I kept this Christmas tree right, well not Christmas, I kept this right here because they like to do events outside. So with this open area, they can kind of like decorate and do whatever they want during the holidays, or you know how some people decorate, and then people can see them. The total cost would be $181,057. That's good.
Octavia, some things that I liked about your plan graphics. I thought that the colors you chose and the rendering, the base map looked excellent. I thought the hand sketch you did of the building, presumably you probably had a photograph of the building, you were able to elaborate off that. Those were really lovely. And I think that looking at the plan, I thought your organization of benches and light posts and features, I mean, from for an institution like that, I thought that all of those elements were really well placed. And because since I think Octavia is walking around, she's paying attention to furnishings and things that she uses. What I'd love to see is building on that, beginning to really see plants and beginning to really see different paving materials so that you can begin elaborating on really these kind of these things like benches and light posts. You know, I think those are in the world you live in. You're from DC. When you go home, there's so much landscape architecture to consume there with the different memorials, et cetera, et cetera. I think you have a firm grasp on what like a public place needs, what circulation, what your circulation has. We're very intuitive. I'd love to see what that extra layer is now. So if you like say, okay, I understand to a degree what sort of furnishings and circulation encourage movement and rest in an area, but what is that extra layer now that encourages comfort, that encourages inspiration, that is intriguing? And I think visiting some of these memorials and the temple gardens and seeing people use plants, I think will elaborate this kind of internal library of ideas that you're building as you go through. So just keep your eyes open and seek out landscape architecture and consume it like a movie.
That's funny you said that, because when I was doing this project, I am from DC, so like in DC, our downtowns kind of, we mainly have a lot of open areas kind of, but like landscape, it's kind of open. So when I was doing this project, someone from down south is kind of different. He lives in South Carolina, and it was just different because they're not used to like a lot of open area with lights and benches on like the sidewalk and stuff like that. So
yeah. Also, the area, the landscape architecture you're consuming is like this campus and like this courthouse. A lot of times it's very sparse, because of safety issues. You can't like have people hide behind shrubs and that kind of stuff. But that doesn't always. You just be very careful not to keep putting the same context into all your designs. And I think DC, as soon as you go home for the holidays, visit some memorials, some other museums. I really think art museums have some of the best public landscapes that have these different exhibits pop up through. they're a great departure from perhaps some of the more municipal and institutional landscapes that you would consider.
I'm just gonna be real nitpicky here. Can you go back to your perspective of your, so I don't know if it's just a sketch of how it looks like that little whole area there with the water feature that there's one like out, which that safety, we don't want to create a dead end space somewhere that there's one access point. We want to make sure that, if somebody were to be inside there and stand in that opening, there's something blocked or they can't get out. So we always want to make sure that thinking about multiple entry exit points just for safety. That's just me.
I have one comment, really quick. You talked a lot about lights, right, being in here. I can see them, they're gigantic, right? So maybe think about scale of things, right? But what I was thinking as we were looking through these lovely renderings, right, your SketchUp perspective, how great it would have been to see this at night. Because the first image that you showed of the Malibu lumber yard, right, had an image that was sort of at night, right? It looked like it was lively, there was a bunch of stuff going on, and since you talk so much about like adding in lights and having this space be available, it's safe, people are coming in at night, it would be almost like a really good opportunity to show it lit up and these spaces are happening at night. Like, what light is this providing? And like, is it just the overhead lights, right? Is there opportunities for string lights? Is there opportunities for some smaller lighting, for even pathway lighting or whatever's happening around the site? But yeah, just watch your scale a little bit because some of these lights are really large for like towering on this building. I guess this building is probably 20, 30 feet tall. So the lights are probably 35, 40 feet tall, which may be like the same size lights that are on like an interstate. So you want to bring this down to like a human scale a little bit. But other than that, great SketchUp model. Yeah, good design.
What we're saying about different perceptions of seating in DC and down south. Could you explain more? What do you notice that's different?
I was saying about the seating per se, like we have seating almost everywhere. So like downtown, you have seating like on the lawn or like on the sidewalks and stuff like that. There's not really much seating on the sidewalks like down here.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
So I think really good observation and really important is we're all studying landscape architecture. There isn't one landscape architecture, right? And most of the people of the world do not sit on benches. Right? And in fact, most of the people in the world actually don't sit on what we call seats. They're just aware, who you're designing for. Because I was happy to hear you say that, because at first I was like, oh, interesting. Why are the benches on the walkways? But it's really important that it's actually for the right reason, because you're observing them not being that way in where you're designing, which is right on target. Good stuff.
So we have one more group and then we'll have a 10-minute break after this next series. So Britt, Jay.
Hello, my name is Brittany Angel. My group's name is Spatial Motif with me, Sawyer, Lay, and James. Our ethics statement is we are dedicated to creating functional spaces that connect people to their environment and create appreciation for the surrounding landscape. We utilize the natural world as a dominant feature in the artistic presentation of sustainable landscape, hopefully provoking people to make respectful choices and aid in preserving the natural habitat. What Warren County wanted for this site was to create a place that encourages conversation and hope and bringing life back into the community. When previously there was a bit of division with the Confederate statue being in front of the courthouse. So the name of my project is Cognizant Square. I did a precedent study named Thomas Jefferson University Lubert Plaza. I chose this one because of its circular shape and it's very welcoming, and it has also diverse visitors. So there's students and faculty as well as community members. So families go here as well. It also holds events, as you can see in this bottom picture here. So it's able to hold a lot of people as well. So this is my first party in concept. For this one, I focused a lot on the quilt patterns that are relevant to the town here. So I kind of wanted it to be almost like shadows on a shadow wall. And then I also wanted to incorporate water because that's something that they wanted in this space as well. So you can see over here that I have these walls that I would want the patterns to reflect off of. My second party in concept, I had more of a natural theme to it. So I kind of based it off of the Once Tribe designs that they have here that they make on like clay surfaces for festivals. And I kind of wanted that to be a little bit over here. So they have this like dogwood tree that they celebrate when it blooms. So I kind of wanted a little grove here and then a natural looking splash pad for kids to kind of play around in. My third concept, I focused on individuality and connectivity. So I have like a water feature kind of in this, or around this center, almost island here with seating. And then I have like bridges that would represent connectivity and individuality kind of coming off of that, kind of showing here. So I had a final concept based off of those designs, and then I kind of threw it all away and had like a moment of revelation in the middle of the night. And I kind of based everything then off this clock tower that is already on the site that is dedicated to the Rotary Club. This is their symbol that they have here, which is on the bottom. And they have these 4 questions. Is it truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned on each side of the space here? And I thought those were good questions to ask and a good representation of what they want for the site as well. And I have the quilt patterns up here, and I also use the cogwheel, which also goes with this symbol here. And I kind of incorporated that. And it also reminded me kind of of people lying together and with hands connected. And these drawings down here are kind of making me think of people working together. So they're like arms and legs wrapping around cogwheels. Okay, this is my final master plan. So I have, can't really see it too well, but I have the path kind of going around there. Kind of a little person here, that's the head. But I have these trees along the street because it's really loud on the 401, and those are Yoshino cherry trees to make it vibrate in the spring. I also have some river birch trees here, and then the willow oaks that they already have on site, and then adding it to the other side because it's very sunny on the other side and they didn't really have any trees. They did have the Christmas tree here, but I relocated it over on this side so they can still have the festivals, Christmas festival that they had on the site as well. I have a playground, like kid area in the back. They already have this maple tree back here, and then I have a rain garden and bioswale back there where the site is the lowest, so all the rainwater would collect over there with the existing magnolia tree. Okay. This is an aerial view of the site. You can kind of see everything more clearly. So the fountain is here in the shape of the cog. We have all the trees, like spring trees blooming. And then I have the rain garden back here, playground here. And I have the memorials and flags kind of relocated on this side. This is a drawing of a perspective, essentially, kind of from this side of the street looking this way. Yeah, so you can see the front of the courthouse. This is kind of standing a little bit down the street there. Have the Christmas tree here, and then these benches, I was thinking, because they wanted natural resources, I could use local lumber or something to create those benches, and just having native grasses behind there. And then with the street lamps also to create more light for nighttime. And kind of standing back from that, we have the memorials here and the flags so people can learn about the history of the site as well. Standing back again, as you can see a better view of the fountain, so it's in that pattern and it has seating around it, so people can relax there and take pictures of the site over here. This is kind of from the other side of the site, looking this way. You can kind of see the winding paths going around and the seating as well. This is another drawing of the rain garden I have in the back of the site. This is another more realistic view of it, and it has seating here for people to relax and kind of enjoy. This kind of represents a bioswale kind of coming down so the water would go and collect out here. And then this is the playground area I have in the back. Have a kind of colorful rubber mulch that kids can kind of enjoy, so it's not all monotone back there. And then I have like the restaurant across the street that they wanted to incorporate, so kind of repurpose this building that's a little bit kind of burnt down as well to a restaurant, and then have outdoor patio and a lawn games area possibly. And this could kind of be what it would look like with outdoor lighting, like string lights or something up on the top there. And this is a elevation with the fountain here, and then the street trees along with the street over here. My total project cost would be around $600,000. With the paving cost being $172,000, the site furnishings being about $20,000, and plant materials being about $10,000.
I mean, I don't even, where do we begin? Okay, so, I used to live down the street from Bluebird Plaza, right? So I know, like, at Thomas Jefferson University, nice place, really fun to go to, especially in the city. It also has a huge stormwater component, not that you guys are talking about that, but think waterway for later. I really enjoyed your design. I thought that having one of those moments that you're kind of like, wait a minute, what am I doing? Like seeking inspiration for something so small. Just a quick question. All of those cogs and everything, that's like in the ground plane and the paving, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of neat that you put that there, sort of a nod to that. They have like a nice background in the questions that are asked, and I really appreciate that you added in more plants on this site, and so you sort of balanced out, you know, hey, that's just me because I like plants, right? So that's me. I like the fact that that's on there, and you have a lot of paving, and maybe folks need more programmed area for turf and things like that, but I'm not a turf gal, so I do like trees, I like plants, I like varied interests in different things, so I think that it all worked together really well. Also, great job on your presentation. You have a beautiful, like, speaking voice and, like, nice, clear, I could hear you very well over some of this outside area, so thank you. I don't have the best hearing, so it's nice.
So you can go back to your precedent. I'm going to go through a couple pieces. I think something to be conscious of with a precedent, really importantly, is context. And so Dallas knows this intimately. I think I've just been there once. But the density of people in that place makes a design function really differently. Right, so I don't know, there's probably 5,000 people within a square mile of where Jefferson is. So be careful about that, because you can see like that, that's like a quarter of the town there. Right? in that image. So just be aware that landscape's really sensitive to how many people are around. So you have to scale it down. And I think you probably did that in some ways, but be careful about it. When I first saw the precedent, I was worried that it might lead you to create something that was too big for the town. But you only have 8. If you go to your, I think it was to your concepts, I agree with Alice that I think you implemented the concept you chose really well. I think one more individualism. Though I think in some ways this concept illustrated another aspect of even more advanced landscape architecture. So you click to your 2 more slides, I think, to the cogs. So these are symbols. Right? They aren't things you actually engage. It's like I look at a cog and maybe it means something to me. And that's just one level of communication. You show a symbol, it may or may not mean something to somebody. You go back to your previous concept. What I love about this is you're actually engaging people in an activity where they're experiencing something. Right? They're experiencing crossing over a bridge to a unified place. They're experiencing many choices and how different individuals. So whenever you can, if you could design something that creates an experience that communicates rather than a symbol. So we're not writing on the ground, but actually we're creating experiences. Does that make sense? Because clearly you have the graphic facility to communicate it, but now you can go to another level of what are you actually creating. And I think, I'm sure, as Chris has said, we got to be careful not to let our plans think we're graphic artists. Because it's not what it looks like on the ground. And then I love that you have a density of trees if you go to your plan. So the nature that trees aren't objects that sit alone in the world, but they so often are protected that way. And one thing just to note here is it would be great to show this and then click and all the rendering of your trees disappears and they're just lines so we can see through them. Right? And that would be really easy, right? Because it's just a layer. And then lastly, and this would be for everybody, these costs are probably really low. So we'll get it as we go. Life gets more complicated, things get more expensive. So just know that. There's time to develop. You'll see this is probably first layer cost, and then once everything costs twice as much because of contracting, and 3 times as much because of insurance and contingencies. So just know that. It would be so wonderful if you could build this for $600. Yeah, I don't think you can.
Oh boy, it was such a pleasure to see your work and just to really feel like we were getting a glimpse inside your design process. I really enjoyed that a lot. I like what Steve just said about it is important to sort of see the difference between just a symbol of something versus an experience of something. And maybe if I could see this a little more detail, I might sort of begin to understand how all the cogs are working together, and maybe that's part of the story. I don't know, but it's a lot of interesting shapes, and looked like it would be a really fun place to walk around and experience. So I also really enjoyed that you put so much detail into each of those different areas, not just the courthouse square itself, but also the other 2 corners of the lot and the lot across the street. We could quibble about some of the details of it, but I thought especially those rain garden was a particularly nice design. Kind of created a whole experience there in terms of educational, but also being in the shade and sort of seeing how all that works together. So, nice job.
Something like
Hello everyone, my name is Sari Deltano, and this is my project for the Warren County Courthouse named Athlete Reflection Plaza. So I drew a lot of inspiration from the Erie Street Plaza. This is located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The designers intended for it to be multi-use, and I think they conveyed that very well with this graphic here on the bottom, where they used different symbols and arranged it throughout the site so that they could kind of figure out how they're going to arrange these different program elements for their site. Also, the Warren County Commissioners spoke a lot about making the site more vibrant and alive at night, and so I really like their use of creative lighting here, and also kind of like their very creative hardscapes in the Erie Street Plaza. So in concept one, this is where I kind of I really focus more on some of the existing forms on site. On the northern end, I already started to think that I wanted a water feature in my site having to do with Kerr Lake, since that's very important to them. So I have the sidewalk turned into a bridge over my water feature, and I put a semicircle in that bridge that would reflect a full circle in this reflection pool. That's kind of, eventually I started thinking of it as a reflection pool. And since a circle is something that a lot of people think about when they're thinking about unity, but I eventually ended up moving away from the semicircle bridge. And my second concept, there's an arborvitae tree on site that they use as a Christmas tree, and they saw this arborvitae tree as being very important. So I moved that behind my water feature along with the flagpoles on site to create sort of this Washington Memorial very serious reflection pool. And in this parquet diagram, I started thinking about how I could frame views on site to bring passerbys, probably just going to the lake that normally would never stop in this town. How can I bring them into the site and stimulate economic growth with this site, with the surrounding businesses? So in my third diagram, this is where I was, in the parquet diagram, I was thinking about quilt patterns, but while I was creating these quilt patterns, I noticed it kind of looked like an aerial of farm fields from the air. So that's kind of what inspired my narrative and my story of my site. While visiting the site in person, I noticed rows and rows of soybeans, and this inspired the narrative for my site, a story of environmental resources, unity through the land that everyone is familiar with, everyday scenes that the citizen can connect with. When meeting with the county commissioners, they repeated that Warren County's natural resources were something they were all proud of. I'd like to abstract, you could even say reflect, the land on my site, and bring these common day scenes, bring the ground that not only that they figuratively stand on, but they can literally stand on in the site. So on the top picture kind of shows what I'm trying to convey in my hardscape, with the linear lines of the farm fields broken up with the forest that surround the farm field. So I try to convey that in my hardscape with planting beds being in my hardscape. I like this large hardscape because it can fit roughly 14 to 15 food trucks, bringing the food trucks off the road and more into the site. And then also with creative lighting, I saw these pictures of this creative lighting. I thought about maybe how you could work patterns into that, more specific to the site, instead of just kind of these ambiguous patterns that they have on it now. So the reflection pool, while it can still serve as a reflection pool over the summer, maybe during the winter, like they have a winter fest. How could this is like LeBauer Park. How could it kind of be like a winter scene during the winter, especially with that Christmas tree? So they could do this two different ways. There's a more expensive option, and there's a less costly option. And here's more of a close-up of that creative lighting with an actual soybean in the lighting that would kind of tell the story of the site and also act as lighting, of course. So there's, like I was saying, the framing views from going northbound. So this is probably the way a lot of traffic takes to the lake. This would be a framed view here. I'm trying to frame the more desirable views on site. Another framed view going southbound. Just kind of a close-up of some of the interactions and things that are happening in the hardscape, along with I also placed the World War II memorial, the detective memorial in my mulch beds. Sort of more zoomed out look of everything and how it's working. Paving costs ended up being $500,000. Site furnishing costs $60,000. Plant material costs $5,000. And total project cost with installation contingency around $2 million. Annual maintenance costs $1,800. Thank you.
So, you want to go back to your next point, please? Awesome. First thing, I really like the idea of pulling the food trucks off this street into the plaza area. That makes a lot of sense. I know me not being from North Carolina, coming here, that's one of the big things that stood out to me is food truck festivals aren't everywhere. That's just be a part of the culture. I think it's really cool. So knowing that we do have this busy artery going through the street right next to the site, and pulling in food trucks makes a lot of sense. Pulling them off the street, reserving the street to, wouldn't necessarily have to block traffic as much anymore. So it functionally makes a lot of sense. However, the other part of that is when there isn't an event going on, that seems like it would be a very massive space without much of anything. I can't tell if there are any trees.
Yes, so there's 3 existing trees on site, and let's see if there they are. There's 3 very large existing trees on site, so maybe that's something I should have put in.
Yeah, that would probably help just to at least see the outline of the tree to get an idea of what shades cover that would provide for that area. Because when you talk about being able to put 15 food trucks in there, I mean that's a massive area, and for me, a massive tree can't be for the radius of 30 feet. So, that'd be like 3, maybe 4 trucks of shade. So it just feels like it's a very massive open space, and without being able to see the trees, it feels like it gets very, very hot during the summer, especially when you would have most amount of people transit in that space. But overall, I do like the design. It's very simple, but I think for what it is, for your concept.
Yeah, sorry. I think it's very mature work. I think the concept you chose was really sound. Some of the things that I wrote down here are that you have in the agricultural concept that resonates with me, particularly in this environment. I think that image of all of those individual like crop patterns would translate really well not only to the hardscape like you've done, but almost to turf patterns as well. And I think that you could even like simplify it. This is the same thing I wrote down for Brittany. It's like a lot of these patterns that get adapted to the ground plane. They don't always register when you're standing in it, so they don't always have an impact. So having support narratives like your lighting design here with soybeans really helps reinforce that. And when you guys get to firms, you're going to have people in the room with you to help you edit. So you can bring this great idea in, and then you'll have people to help you kind of value engineer. Like, how many gears did Brittany need to actually convey the idea? How many of these patterns, Sawyer, do you need to convey the idea? And then are those patterns effective when they're irregular as you draw them, or when you're standing in the space, is it more legible if it's actually simpler and just long rectilinear blocks? It's I see pros do this all the time. Sometimes we turn into landscape painters in base map, but it doesn't always translate once you get in it. That's, I think, the magic of bottleneck. You can get that answer immediately. So some of the other things I wanted to commend you on, some other things that I'm seeing maturing in your work, these wayfinding devices, these arrows, these smaller maps. You know, a lot of times when I'm being introduced to a project from a student, I can't orient myself in the space. I just kind of have to like pretend I know what they're talking about or what they're talking about. I really don't. And this helps me say, oh, wait, yeah, okay, I see where, you know, Sawyer is intending for these lights to go. You have scale bars and north arrows. I mean, that's what to me, not only is your work beginning to look, well, not beginning, it looks good here. I think it's also beginning to look professional as you add all of these extra things that anticipate my need to get oriented in the space. So, you know, I think this is very, 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 very good, mature work.
I just have a quick question. You said you could fit 15 food trucks in your space. Do you have a feel for how much paving that you have there, like square footage wise?
Yes, so when I was doing my paving costs, essentially, yeah, so I took the square footage off of SketchUp, and then I found I found a permeable paving source that was $40 per square foot, and so that's how I got my the cost and how much square footage that there is.
I was just wondering because it in your cost analysis, like the breakdown, that was the most expensive thing by leaps and bounds, right? So it makes a little more sense that it was permeable, and then you have like a whole system, right? So underground and paving usually costs a lot more money, right? And now it sounds like it's rated for heavy trucks because you've got like some big stuff in there. But yeah, that's it. Wow, a lot in there. I was just curious if you knew how much square footage that was in there, but that's good. Now I know, $40 a square foot.
All right.
Thank you very much. That's in that group, so.
So, this is the one right here. I was going to like that.
So my name is Elijah Kramer, and today I'm presenting Quilted Love. So for my president, we are going from the President Charles Groundy Discovery Garden. This is located in the Duke University campus there in North Carolina. I chose this because it's relatively close to the site as far as size and acres. It's 0.96 acres. And I also wanted to choose it because of the garden/arboretum theme. I felt like if the courthouse wanted to be feeling more of a nature feel, that it should have some things like herbal plants and a lot of just warm seating areas to include in the site. And I also chose it because of the humid subtropical climate. It's similar to the site as well as the cost savings as well. So one of the main results that came from the site, from the surveys that we got from the community was that unity was one of the main voted influences that the community would like to see in the design. So I thought of elements such as water features, fire features, extra greenery, plants, and maybe like sun shadow reflections. Those are some of the things they decided to implement to help express the sense of togetherness in the space, as well as equality is something that the county is in desperate need of. There is a racial kind of tension going on, and the goal is to regulate that and make everyone feel comfortable in the space. So we wanted to create a worry-free environment in space where every single person feels genuinely welcome. And also that there's more privacy between the road and courthouse because there's a lot of traffic and trucks that come through, and it's very loud and noisy for it to be a courthouse and for it to be a public park, quote unquote, place. So on to my first concept. This is where I kind of go with the naturalistic water theme. I felt like water, the flow of water is a sense of bringing people together. They also said that they wanted some very, not big, but main attraction when it comes to a water fountain. That was one of the main attractions in the survey. So I decided to go with things like a gazebo, bioswale, maybe community gardens to help
just push that idea. And in this concept, that's when I included things like a community garden, edible garden, water feature and seating, and gazebo and seating, as well as the bioswale and wearing garden. And in my second party design, this is where I wanted to make it more towards a historical feel. Since it is a courthouse, there is a chance that not a lot of people know the history, hence that there's a lot of racial tension in the community. So I thought a best way to do that is to incorporate to where the history is displayed. It's out in the open, and you don't have to, guess what the history is. Everybody will know exactly what it is, especially when you're putting things like the Warrington history signage, things like outdoor museum, and a lot of things that is embedded in their history is quilting. And I provided a lot of ways to put quilting into the site to where they can display their artwork and it becomes a staple into the town. And so I include things like the event vendor space, gazebo seating, outdoor classroom where children are actually encountered with the site and they can learn outside, reflection pool, and quilting displays. On to my third party diagram. This is where it goes into the play of lights and sculptures and just the play of the sun. And so I include a lot of shadow sculptures and light sculptures around the area to make sure that the nightlife, hence the reason why there isn't no nightlife, because there's no lights. No one wants to walk in the dark, so it doesn't feel secure. So I feel like lights and having ways that incorporate the sun into the site will give a sense of security to where they can do things past 8 o'clock and no one has to feel that they need to go home. They can enjoy that nightlife. And so this is my final design, and I decided to kind of create like a water droplet type thing, since I felt like water and the mix of water and quilting patterns is kind of like the theme I'm going for. It's a staple since their lakes is really important to them. They take pride in their lakes. I've decided to use the symbolism of water and incorporate it all into one site. And this is one of my perspectives to kind of show like the different wind sculptures and kinetic sculptures, some extra land, and a water feature to where the kids can walk and play on. And this is kind of showing that in like a SketchUp view. This on the side is like the representation of the Warrington Lakes. As you know, Carrington and Gaston Lake. So I wanted to get the way to get the children to be able to jump on rocks and rocks and enjoy the outdoors. And it's on shallow water, so it's not like they're being submerged. You know, it's a place for the kids to play and get distracted, as well as for a beautiful site for someone to walk around. And in the back, there's an outdoor classroom as well as the water fountain on the side. And then back, I felt like a best way to incorporate was the community garden. This is more towards the back end of the site, and I felt like adding things like a compost as well as shelter for the elements that you need to create a community garden. Felt like that was important to also include. And this is my master plan, kind of seeing the top view. I have the rain garden and bioswale in the back. And then I have a pergola with the outdoor classroom in the front, kind of giving the different sets of spaces. And then that outdoor museum and the water feature in the front, as well as that community garden in the back. And these are just different views of them. And this is kind of like my sectional I got for the rain garden. At the end, it has like a underwater feature, and then they can walk across the bridge to kind of get like a sense of outdoor gardening and just a tranquility space. And that's what I decided to incorporate in that back corner. And these are my calculations for the site. For paving, I got 1,600. For site furniture, 58,000. Plant material, 5,000, and all total cost is 66,000, as well as the annual maintenance being 3,000. Thank you.
I'll start, but I'll be brief because I want to see some of my time to a guest who's an alumnus who's now doing what you want to do in 3 years. So this is Kristen Evans, working at Newberry as a landscape designer. I'm going to have some thoughts, and also if you catch him in the break, give you advice about getting a good job right out there. So So a few short comments and I'll pass my time to Bruce. So I think it was exciting to see how you went from a very complex plan and you go to their complex combined concepts.
Yeah.
And that's cool because so everyone's like, we haven't seen it before, like, oh my God, there's so much going on.
Yeah.
Right? But then, but as Preston said, this is all about editing, right? So then go to your master plan. Right? Yeah, Tanya. So, okay, so you effectively edited. And I think that's really, just a critical thing.
Yeah.
And so don't be scared about, it's good that you created that density in a concept. And then you like Preston said, you took off a few things you cut down to the refined. I also think really effective that you were conscious that you needed to create spaces. So for say, go to the perspective that shows the trellis and the seating like that one. So there's details to be worked out about scale and other things, but you're conscious that we're creating an occupied space, even though we don't build buildings. But they often have roofs, whether it's a tree or a trellis. They have walls, even if they're implied. But that's really effective. Now, I was thinking about your concepts, and my sense was maybe go back to your concepts. And my last comment, I'll pass it to Chris, is keep quickly go back. Yeah, so that you are interpreting them as pieces of programming. So my concept is X, so I'm going to do certain things. I think the next step would be to think not about the programming, but my concept is X, so what's the form? And how is the form going to affect the experience? I think 2 concepts back is nature. Right? So the form isn't natural. Right? And so the experience probably would be. So just try to connect them. Using form because we're form makers to move your concept.
You go to your overall master plan. I actually really like your site and I really like how you structure your circulation. But when I actually look at the site, it makes me want to go and walk around the outside of the site. I don't really want to come into the site because all the elements are on the edge. You don't have any one driving factor is like, boom, this is where I want to go. Everything's gently placed around the edge of the site. So there's no real reason, or to me, it doesn't make me feel like I want to go through the site. I do want to come to the site, but I don't actually want to travel through it. And that would be the one comment I would have to you is find that kind of one anchor point, which it could have been where you put your flags at, or it could have been somewhere along that side of the building where you're pulling people closer to the building. And you're pulling them more to interact with everything instead of kind of just going on package.
Really interesting process. I really enjoyed seeing how you went through everything. And a lot of things have already been said in terms of sort of like the 3 concepts. And I like what Steve's saying about kind of getting beyond just programming to more of like how does the form relate to that programming to the larger concept that you're trying to explore. I like this sort of whirling almost, what we call it, it's like novels. Yeah, it's like a novelist, yeah. Like there's something there that's like begging to come out and be explored a little bit more. Got another few weeks, maybe. Maybe part of that would be like making it a little bit smaller scale so that you could actually go all the way around it. And like Kristen's idea, like, and that's the center, like in the middle of, it's almost like the center of a hurricane or something.
Yeah.
And the eye of the hurricane is that, like it's almost there, like really close to getting there, something like that. And I think maybe the one thing that I feel like you've got a lot of interesting elements, but they don't all quite get woven together into like something that all seems to all fit together. It's like, well, this is here and that's cool, and this is really cool, and that thing's cool. But you just need to keep working on like how does it all start to go into some kind of an organic thing. And I think part of that is that form. You've got sort of curvilinear and rectilinear things all kind of happening, and it starts to feel like, well, is that road that? But I love your whole process, and I think the one other little thing I'll say is on the one hand, I like the idea of creating an outdoor room, like literally, it's in the shape of a county.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, would I go in there? Like, would that be a place I'd want to be inside?
Yeah, well, it's an outdoor museum, so it's supposed to have like, you know, like information, so you kind of just like look at it and glance, and then you're like,
Oh, so
what
it's
is
more like
that?
walking around the outside, you
Yeah.
wouldn't go in? Like,
I mean, well, you're right. There's some tweaking I need to.
it's not really criticism, it's just, I was just thinking like, wow.
Okay.
Yes, I just have one comment, and I'm not gonna harp on anybody else's stuff. Your like little parties and sketches, I think you have like a little wonderful hand in sort of giving us a peek into what this vibe is gonna be like, right? If you go back to those, where we can sort of see, like, you've got all these things kind of going on, and I think that's great. Like, I can look at that, and then I can look up here, and say, oh yeah, look at all this stuff. They got this, they got people, and they're doing this and that. I love that. That tells me so much about what's happening in here. So don't ever stop doing that. I think that's really, really wonderful.
One thing, since no one mentioned it, I want to mention, north is up here, correct? So, conscious, you can't put a community garden in the northern corner of a site with a building on the south and east side, because it won't get sun.
Yeah.
So that's just an example, right? So just the kind of thing
Because it does, yeah.
like, be conscious of. And you get used to it, that's one of those things on your checklist. Always check what needs sun and is it in the right place.
Sure. All right, so. Makes you go. Right, left, go take it back.
Good afternoon, I'm James Terry, and I made the concrete courthouse. I studied the Texas. I studied shop park in Texas. It was about 27 acres, and I really like the concrete and the plants. Like on top of the building, they had plants on top of the building, and they had a one-way that I wanted to incorporate in my design for the trucks, for all the trucks, but yeah, I couldn't do it in the final.
Yeah, just you're playing at the computer.
This is my first concept. I really tried to keep it original, like from like all the original stuff that was on the site. I just added a wigwam, which is for the Halawasa tribe, like the wigwam, and I like the old timey benches and trash cans and light posts, so I kept those too. And I just changed the different plants on them. And second concept, it was a quilt. I tried to make the whole square quilt, like a piece, like a square piece of quilt, and just switch up the different materials for the different patterns. This is my final design. I stuck with the quilt on the just on the front part, but that would be the front part is concrete. This is all concrete. And these are the trees. Alright, so I had in the back I put a dog part because we saw a bunch of dogs, not a bunch of dogs, we saw a couple dogs. And it's not a big dog park, so like you're not gonna have too many dogs out there. It's just like a little chill dog park. It still has a tree for shade. Have walk around the side. You got the flowers right here, and I added in the back we added a wigwam right. I added a wigwam right. Alright. I added a flower walk for the site because I took out all the grass in the front, so we need to put some plants somewhere. So I put the plants right here and right here. So 2 flower walks by the doors. On my final, you see the On my final, I added the memorials right here, and there's a bench right here, and the flags are right here. So like you just have like a little area, get some sun, get some sun. This is the view of this side. It's a ramp, and the trees have like little seats around it, so you can still sit down. And this is the flower walk on the right side, and you have the two memorials. This is the elevation plan. This is my elevation plan. It's not too much. It's probably like, I think it was 5. And yeah, this is my final plan. And the total was $249,000. Thanks.
I got a question for you. Can you go back to your, the plan, your illustrative plan? Keep going back some, where we can see the paving, right? There we go. This is good. This is good. Okay, so out in front, right? Can you explain a little bit more about exactly what is happening out here? So these are your trees that are here that have these like nice seating curve around them. So what is this? Is that
oh, this is just a pattern. It's like the quilt. It's the quilt pattern in the
inlaid in their pavement.
In the pavement. So like it's just like it'll just be like darker concrete. So it's different type like shades. So you can see it'll look like a.
So the only trees that you have there in the front are in this sort of southeastern corner.
Yes.
On here. Yeah, it might be a little hot up there for that. I mean, I would just suspect that, during the summer months, people might need a little bit more shade to sit out and enjoy the space. But it is nice and wide, especially if you plan on having a non-program space for food trucks or events that are happening out there or tents people setting up, right? Can I ask you why you have the flower walk sort of where you have it arranged? Like the two spaces I think you have in purple?
Now this is just flowers right here. But this is
that's the actual walk. So,
yeah. And then this is a little flower walk.
So are they have some sort of significance to the area, or are they natives or pollinators, or have you like sort of thought through that a little bit more? Or was it something that you saw in your precedent study?
It was something that I saw while we were out there. There was like a little flower walk. It was somewhere else, like along this street, like down there. But there was a little flower walk that was already there, but it wasn't like bottom of the square.
So you're working on sort of trying to tie these areas all together?
No, it looks nice.
You like it? Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I think like kind of like stepping back and looking at the way you developed this project. And what I was trying to do is find a thread that connected the original concept that I saw relative to wigwam and Native Americans, its interpretation of the plan, the overall plan graphics. It looks like to me as a student of this medium that you are still kind of eyes open and looking around. And what I think I'd like to see you do is to use the ASLA website, as I mentioned, pollinator classes, as an opportunity for precedent study. And so this was something when I was in art school, my teachers helped me to learn painting. What I would do is I would print out an image, and I would trace what the trees are, trace what the people are, and suddenly I would begin reverse engineering this painting to understand how that master organized the things on the page. And I think that if you were to look at examples from the ASLA, both the student work and the professional work, and really study how those paths are organized and how those concepts come from art to form in the design, I think that you would actually kind of hit your stride, because you remind me of me early on in this work when I was really experimenting with what my stuff looked like and how I went from this broad concept to form so much. And it took me a long time, it took me too long, I think, to begin to develop. It wasn't until I really started studying not only other people's work, but how they put the work together and what their final plane graphics look like, that I began to see patterns in everyone's work. It's like, oh, sidewalks are always kind of this color, and they seem to either be kind of like jagged or circular. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, I think you have an opportunity to build on this project in the future semesters by getting really informed with how the profession approaches work. Because once you learn how to do it right, then you can start practicing how to do it wrong, which is kind of a way of saying you can start taking artistic license once you figure out how to do it right. And I think in this plan right here, I actually really like the collage feel of it. It's irreverent, it's unexpected to me. And I see really high-powered firms do this. It's not how they present polished work, but it is how they take a conceptual approach to explaining different materials, different painting patterns, and that sort of thing. Does that make sense? Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is there's a world of other landscape architects out there. Their work might excite you. I think that a good way for you to expand on where you are right now is to now take a deep dive into how other people do their work, so that your work begins referencing kind of the standard of landscape architecture. Does that make sense? Okay, yeah.
Hey, James, can I just say one other thing? Yes. I think you're the first person that I've seen that said, well, what if the whole site was a quilt? Was a quilt square? Like, what? And then it's like, oh, that's really what you did. Like, the whole site is a square that would go into a bigger quilt. I think it's cool that how you did that. Hey, I don't necessarily like your design, but.
Good morning, you guys. Our group is Project Infinity Design. I am Kendra.
I'm Jason.
And back there with the teal shirt, that's my man Sam. All right. Okay, so our project challenge and thesis statement, our dilemma was the issues that Project Infinity Design team is facing on this project are poor lawn areas riddled with anthills and uneven grass to sidewalk transition. There's also seems to be an unclear vision of space and what it should be used for. The surrounding town of Warrenton, as well as the entire Warren County community, have experienced wealth, poverty, negative connotations concerning its historic role in slavery, and a proud background of African American, white, and Native American culture. This could present difficulties creating a completely inclusive project that makes all visitors and locals of the site feel properly represented.
For the thesis, our main point was to bring the community of Warren County back together and display its culture and put Warren County back on the map. How historically it was, it could have been one of the places that could have been the capital of North Carolina. Yes.
And that presents me to be the first one to present, and I give you Sweet Harmony Park. Okay, so for my president, I picked Main Street Square. It's in Rapid City, South Dakota. I picked this precedent because of the simple fact that obviously it's the same size as Warren County. The site area is about 1 acre. I picked this really because South Dakota, Warrenton is trying to put itself back on the map. So I know nobody really goes to South Dakota, and if you do, you want to go there because of family. So I'm so sad. So I was just saying that it's really cool how they made this little space something very like entertaining and family environmental, like very welcoming to like the city of South Dakota, of Rapid City. So this is my Sweet Harmony Park master plan. This is the top view. This just has like all the basic elements I have, the DNA sculpture, which I'm going to get into, connection building, garden seed, inspired on Hollow Pony, seating right here, and this marble eye mirror right here in the center. Okay, and this is my first concept. We're gonna look at the marble eye right here. Basically, I picked this because I want to say the evil eye, but the evil eye has a good connection to it. But this town is basically full of like older people, so I don't want them to get that message of, oh, evil eye, that's really bad. But this is to bring good energy to the community, to bring a welcoming, like very marble, very unique and modern. At the top right here, this is my little sketch. This is what I decided to do. This is going to be a statue of a hand holding together to represent unity. But I decided to really scratch that out. That was going to be too much. And then it was going to interfere with the walkway because maybe they will open this door right here because this door does not open at the moment. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe, but I just did something that's on the floor, very chic. If the kids, I do have an idea of it lighting up at night, the colors, and these are also colors of the Cactus Star quilt. Yeah. So at night, if the kids want to play on it, that would be something cute and nice. So my story for my concept number 2 is basically unity, and together we're all one. So we have the same DNA, same blood. It's all blue, it's all red when it comes out to the air. So I decided to do a DNA molecule that are colors of the quilt, which is the Cactus Star. At the top right here, this is my sketch how I want it to be. Right here is the SketchUp point of view. I really basically didn't really do anything to it, just kind of changed the walkway. If I go back, I really didn't. Basically, I kept it formal as possible because at the end of the day, it's a courthouse back home where I'm from. I'm not from here, I'm from South Florida, so it's very formal. So I wanted to keep that feeling, that vibe. I have this is my sectional piece of the area. Inspire Halawassaponi seating area. The idea was it to be plants around this area that to give it that cozy feeling. Then I was like the bugs and stuff. People sitting right there. I don't like that. So I was just like, we're just gonna keep it like this. And like ideally, I do want more plants. Like Dallas was saying in the last presentation, I do feel like I should have put more plants on there. But this is what I just have. And I also have a little seating butterfly area. The idea is just attract beautiful butterflies in this area. Have a little seating area. So this is my harmony sculpture. That's what I called it. This is side view. This is another side view from the connection building. And this top view. And then the cost of my sculpture is going to be $599,972.
Okay, Kendra, that was really fun to see all the work you put into that. I really enjoyed all your three-dimensional images that you went through, especially towards the end there. The one thing that surprised me a little bit was you went right to your master plan, and then you ended up kind of coming back and showing some concepts, but it wasn't always clear to me what the whole process was. I think I would just encourage you to not jump over that quite so much and spend a little time kind of opening the box for us. Like, you know, I started with this, and then I tried this, and then I tried this. It seemed like some of your concepts were more like, okay, I did this part, and then I went to this part, and then I added this element. So that's the other thing that I would just invite you to think about is, and I think the something. Did you go back to your master plan? Got the final. Yeah, that image. There's some great shapes in there, and there's something going on there, but to me it feels like you just need to know a little bit more about how you got there. And then the other thing I'll say is that it feels a bit like there's an element here, an element there.
That's spacey.
But maybe not like it could be pulled together a little bit more so that it all worked as one thing.
I totally understand what you're saying. I'm like, if you kind of pay attention, you can see the DNA kind of going throughout the whole site. If you had that eye, my teacher right here, he helped me with that. But, yeah, that's kind of.
Well, I really enjoyed your presentation style. You're very relaxed and, you know, it's enjoyable to your narratives.
Yes.
You know, Tikendra, something that can help pull this site together is plants.
Yeah.
You know, so you have like a little bit of an area towards the front of the building with some pollinator plants and things like that. And even if you have some on, you know, like the south side and the north side, you know, like on the west facing side of the site, you can use plants to sort of weave these things together, which is really nice. Plus, I would add in like a few more trees. Well, you have trees here in your perspective.
There's trees on the top view, it looks like paper.
Oh, okay. Oh, I got you. So,
yeah,
okay. Well, maybe if you drew them at a mature level on the plan view, right? So even if they're small and the canopy spread is like 20 feet or 30 feet, we'd still be able to see them a little bit on there. But it is nice. I mean, just remember that put that in your back pocket, that you're able to pull these sites together and to link spaces using plants, because, you know, people are super visual, you know, and then they're looking at things. And even your seating, can you talk a little bit about the seating pattern that you have? And you said it was sort of inspired by that, and I was just, you didn't kind of talk about it a little bit, so I was just wondering, like, what was happening here?
So this is they wanted us to include the Hollow tribe.
Uh-huh.
So I had these benches here, so I'm like, it looks a little plain. So I said, okay, I'll just do something inspired by the tribe and just put it on there. Okay, it's not gonna look like this. This is something that's inspired.
Okay, so this is like some symbolism you would have.
Yeah, in reality, it's not gonna look like this. I hope not. Yeah.
So this is definitely something you can weave into the park as well, right? Through the whole site, even if it seems like it's just on one side.
Yeah, it's only on these long benches right here.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity for some public art too, right? So even if you have them built out of a certain sort of material, maybe it sort of changes with different things, different seasons, different artists, different takes on, you know, some of, like, say, that tribe and some other things, how it's sort of weaved in. I think that sort of gives more of an interest and will draw people in if it's not the same thing all the time. It's meant to be an inspiration. It would be kind of cool to see that from the street as you're walking by. It's not a very tall element, but to have it become an art piece would be kind of cool too, because you have your eye, but that's on the ground plane, right?
Yeah.
So we wouldn't even know that was there until we walked up to actually take a look at it.
Yeah.
So it'd be really cool to.
But at night it glows.
And it goes. It'd be really cool to incorporate those colors too in some of the other places. Do the colors of the eye have a meaning?
Oh, they're the colors of the quilt that they want us to.
Of the quilts. Okay. All right.
It's different colors of the quilt. But yeah, I also try to incorporate, you know, the double helix hat.
And the helix has the same colors too. So it's good if you have those like repeated all through the whole thing. Plant material, maybe in your seating that weaves through, you have it in your double helix. You know, I think that would be something that would really like tie it all together. That's the bow, right? Right. Very cool though. I really enjoy looking at your SketchUp models.
Oh, you're talking? So, that's great. Okay, you've got some good, you know, positive feedback for the strong elements you have. And so I think we always got to think pro con. You're trying to think, what do you do next? What you haven't done, which other classmates have, is you haven't really taken on designing the site. You've got these individual elements, but how do people flow through the site? How do the different, the other two sections relate to this? How do the benches guide and DNA? How are they part of the whole? So you can't critique what you didn't do if you didn't do it, but you really got to do it. Because I think that's the only way you'll go from having good individual ideas and actually being able to design a place. And you know, and for
profound reasons, like DNA, you know, might be one of the best symbols because it would cause people to ask questions. You can imagine a kid going there and saying, Mom, what is that bird? They haven't been science, and why is it here? That's what you want to do. You want to raise questions more than. But you got to, in order to get the chance to do that, you got to actually do something. And I think that probably goes back to Paul's comments too, that the reason Chris or any of us as your future instructors will set out a process is because it forces you to. You can't create ideas or a graphic without designing the site. Make everything count. All right.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Jason McFarlane, and I'm here to show you my concept and final master plan of journey to the world today. And so to start off my project, I used the Liberty Bank building for my personal study. And the reason why I chose this building was because of its historical background. So back in the day, it was a center for African American businesses, in which the first bank center meant for African American people back in the day. But through gentrification and like resources being taken away from the African American community, it became urbanized and gentrified. But in recent years, landowners of the building have brought it back and prioritized the wealth of Black people in businesses. And so the reason I chose this one is because of the historical value and making sure the history is like brought forward and like emphasized. So to start off my project, as my personal story, this is my first monument, my party sketch. So when we first started the project, I had misunderstood the assignment and thought we just solely designed monuments. And so then later on, I figured out we designed the entire environment. So my first monument was a wire sculptures that represent all people, all races. And what the main point is it's gonna be a wire sculpture, but each wire that makes up the sculpture is gonna be a different color that represents the racial stigmas of people. So black people, black people, white people, yellow for light skinned African Americans, red for Native Americans, and brown for Hispanics. At first, I was gonna have each statue be its own color, but then that's too racial motivated, and so I ended up changing it and having all weave into one statue. So regardless of your race of skin, we all still people. And each statue gonna do sign language, and each statue gonna do sign language for people to keep everybody incorporated. And those sign languages are future, change, unity, peace, community, and hope. My second monument is a transatlantic slave map. Also, the Quilt Passage will also incorporate the show interiors. And so this is like my favorite idea and like the one I'm most proud of, because it's like this is where my idea of journey to the world today came from, because none of us are from America. We are from Europe, Africa, and we came here. Our ancestors, their actions have us where we are today. And so this monument is going to be located on the right side, on the right side of the courthouse, where it's the most sun, and it's going to use that most sun. With that full sun exposure, we're going to use that sun for the sundown, keep track of time. And so the flagpole is one issue at the site, was the flagpoles at the base of it, it was eroded, and it was like, it wasn't understood what happened, because the flagpoles, they weren't old, they weren't aged to the point where it should be corroded like it was. And so I decided to put the flagpoles to the sundown map. So it's like a world map. It's not a world map, it's a map of North America, South America, Africa, and Europe, and the maps, the flagpoles will be placed around it. And so for my final party, I decided to do, it's like a shadow box of layers. So it's like a shadow box, where the layers, it's the seals and emblems of North Carolina, Warren County, the Native American tribe, and the Afrocentric symbol, and they're gonna be there on top of each other, like right here. Okay, okay, so it's gonna be like on top of each other like that, and so maybe, and then each one of them is gonna be painted so that sunlight can shine through it, and so each one can circulate throughout the day, and one gonna shine over the other, but throughout the day, it's gonna be in rotation. Here's my first concept, and so I highlighted it to show where we're gonna be at. My second concept incorporates all parties and monuments. My third concept, and so this is my final concept, and it incorporates all the parties. And so my first problem was that I didn't have like an actual story. It was just like my monuments placed, and like I just have things placed. And so what I had to do was make a story around it, so it had like a message. And so the message is journey to the world today. So we got Europe, Africa, and the trails, wooden paths like the slave trips, and the middle passage to the Americas and the world. And here's the monuments at. Excuse me, I'm sorry for being unprofessional. Here's the monuments. And then here's my rendering master plan. I did this by hand. This took me a minute. This took me a minute. Thank you. And here's my programs. My main programs is, so one thing that was the issue that Professor Chris addressed to me is that the right side of my plan is less plants here. But I have prioritized that so that the open space for people to use, and primarily for the sundown map. So, because my issue was that community wanted the newer generation to come back and actually use the space, and you know, the new generation love taking pictures. And on that side, it's perfect sunlighting, take pictures. I took pictures too. This is my name again. Okay, so my first perspective, from coming in from here. So when you drive to Warren County, the first thing you're gonna see is the seal, is the emblem. That's the first thing you'll see. But as you continue to go down, you're gonna see the fire sculptures, and then the last but not least, the map. Yeah. Here's the area over here. Here's my cost. The total cost for the plants, paving, and slab materials is $70,995.60. I'm Jason McMillan, and here's my project.
Actually, let's put the whole site perspective. Yeah, this is president. So what's a little bit easier to see here than on your master plan is overall how this space works. Trying to see that idea of what's on the ground plane, what's up above, you know, the scale in trees, people, statues. And so assuming that everything here is scaled accurately, really be able to see kind of how these spaces are taking shape. And I feel like you have a really good sense of scale on the right side, or sorry, the left side. And as we go over, it'll up. And then when you get to your benches with your picnic tables with the umbrellas, that's suddenly a very large open space. And there are trees that are just going shade under the umbrellas. So was there any particular reason for not adding trees over on that side?
It was to keep as much sun exposure as possible available for the map, because the map it most definitely needs sunlight. So for the sundial to actually function, and so for newer generations to take pictures there.
Okay. Excellent. I really like the idea of the wooden walkways and how that all connects up with the different trade routes and everything. It's really a crazy idea to see that on the ground plan. So, you know, I know what I'm saying. You know, that when you look at things in plan, as opposed to when you're on the site, there's still an element of excitement when you can actually see it from the plan view, and then also someone's flying over the city, looking down and seeing that, that's gonna be something, people think, wow, like, what is this, and kind of really bring interest to the space, in a way that has a lot more meaning. So the fact that there is that much meaning around planting.
Thank you. So I love the excitement you're presenting. But I think probably like me, you get really excited about the different ideas you're talking about. And then suddenly Chris over here is going like in 1 minute. So suggestion would be like if you pop back to one of your concepts, which were a great process, you know that you're going to be excited about it and keep going. If you go back to the where you were showing us the memorials. Two different possibilities. Either go ahead and pick one of them to really explain, and then make the other two really short. That's a way to keep it down. Or I like seeing your process documents, but the problem is that there's a lot to cover there. So you might leave all that there, but just right on top of it, put 2 or 3 bullets what you're going to say. To keep yourself disciplined, because that's going to be a challenge. And when you're actually going out for a job, they'll give you, like a pitch to get a project, they'll give you 12 minutes. In 12 minutes, they just turn the mic off. So you got to know, you got to learn to really be on time. I think it's really exactly good that you misunderstood the assignment. Because right, you get deep in on this, so you should think about that, like use it in the future. But then if you go to your master plan, any of them. So I think by far the strongest thing aren't any of the memorials, right? But starting to actually create a landscape that reflects the ideas. So realize maybe those things were just processed, and they're just gone, right? So they don't still need to be there. But then, because I appreciate the opportunity to see it from plane, but mostly folks won't. So what do you do? I think one thing so far, and you aren't the only person, most of these people haven't taken advantage of topography at all. And it doesn't take a lot, so like a chair is 17 inches, so like standing on a chair, it's really different. So if you raise something just 17 inches on your site, so people can maybe stand on each continent, look at the view, right? They have to step up and they'll see it. Or a power we have is that people have to walk through a site to get from place to place. So if you got rid of the other paths and you made people walk slave routes to get to the courthouse, right? They have to think about what's going on. So we got to use that. People have to walk on our paths. So put the meaning into what they have to do, not what they choose to do. That's where we get to control.
I just say that, just curious. Talk about this hourglass project. How do you think that relates that balance force?
Yeah. So I think that's really the key that you have to use, and this is where it's a creative problem. That people are going to walk the desired line, meaning the line from the northeast corner to the courthouse door if it was open, right? Which was a really important fact. So thank you for sharing it. Obviously, it changes. So I think then you have to get creative to put the slave route on that desired line or very close to it, because otherwise people are going to walk across right there. Because you don't want the only people walking that slave route to be the kid who comes from elementary school. But that would still be cool, right? But if the mayor has to walk back to get to the city hall, well, that's different. But Chris is an important part. That's why it's hard. Because right, you got to make the desire line. So has anyone been to the Vietnam Memorial in DC? So the desire line means the path everyone wants to follow along the wall. Look for your family member or your loved one. Also takes you down into a hole that gets deepest when most people are climbing. So that's really what the memorial is about. Recognizing how the war was a hole, but you get into it. It's hard to get out of it. But you have to go down into that hole in order to see the name. So that's why it's a special project, that everything goes down. But- Thank you.
It's fine, I have to leave probably after this. So,
So you guys do this one and then we'll go.
yes, yes. And then I got to
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Samuel Whitley, and my design is titled "The Patterns That Bind Waterfalls County."
Yeah, a little bit closer.
Okay. My precedent study that I chose was the Thomas Jefferson Lumber Plaza. I chose this because of the goals of the site. They were looking to encourage nightlife, just like Warren County. And also they were looking to support leisure and active recreation. The parcel size of the actual plaza is pretty similar to the size of the courthouse. The courthouse is right at an acre, and it's a little bit over that. You guys stand close. Oh man, that sucks. All right, so this is my first concept. This concept really focused on the history of Warren County, and you can see that in the Our Heroes Fountain party sketch that I did right over here. This was the former foundation of the Confederate Memorial that was presently there, or previously there. So in that party sketch, I decided to repurpose that and take local lumber and put it, an arbor on top of that foundation. And then at the bottom here, you can see that I redesigned the Fallen Detective Memorial and the World War Memorial. In my second concept, I wanted to focus on the natural resources of Warren County. Lake Kerr and Lake Gaston are very prominent water sources that are in Warren County, and a lot of the wealth is surrounding those areas. So I decided to create a splash pad that was in the shape of the outlines of Lake Kerr and Lake Gaston that intersect into Warren County's county limits. I also designed a Warren County seal in the very center, along with 2 flower planting beds. Decided to bring color to the site. And then at the bottom, I did a Hiawassee square, see that right here, to kind of just do a tip of the hat towards them, because they are from Warren County, and their history and their roots run deep in Warren County's culture. My third concept, I wanted to create a place where it encouraged people to kind of lounge and be able to hang out with one another. I created this kind of checkerboard 9-patch pattern, combination of like marble, elevated marble blocks, and grass. That was to basically just create an opportunity for people to come and gather, but also incorporate the quilting patterns into the design. Another thing that I did was this triangle was supposed to be a marble triangle to inform basically visitors of the major towns that are in the county, which are Norling, Macon, and Warrenton, which is Warrenton, where the courthouse resides. So my design inspirations while I was on the site, basically this area up here is an area where they have festivals, and it's, they normally have it across or like around the street corners here. And then this right here was the foundation I talked a little bit about earlier where the statue was. This space right here stuck out to me big time because of the significance of the fallen detective and the World War I memorial. I felt like this is pretty important because it's already placed in the front of the courthouse. And obviously they respect law enforcement and veterans, as do I. And I thought that was pretty important. And the last thing that stuck out to me was this patterns that bind information stand that's back here. And it talks about the quilting history and how that directly affected the economy and also just the culture of Warren County. So this is my illustrative master plan. And so to start off from the top, I placed a festival area. It's underneath this area of sculpture, and it's in the it's after the pattern North Star, and it's supposed to resemble hope. I also kept going with the patterns, and I did the cactus star stone pattern, and then I did an aerial sculpture of the North Star directly over top of the festival area. I also incorporated the quilting patterns into my planting beds here with the 9-patch pattern, and I repurposed the World War I and fallen detective memorial. Here in the middle, at the center of the site, you can see there's a fountain, and that fountain, I did end up designing it after the Our Heroes foundation. They have demolished that foundation, but I thought maybe it would be a good thing to maybe rebuild and then outline it with the courthouse steps pattern. The reason I feel like that's important is because although that might be part of a past that Warrenton and Warren County is not proud of, it doesn't mean that we need to hide that, and I feel like we can build off of that. Sorry. So this right here is the area where my fountain is, and this is how it looks now. And this is how my design looks, that area. The next one you can see is outlined at the top, and it's my aerial sculpture, and this is how the site looks now. And this is my perspective of that area. As you can see, I've set up food trucks for a festival area, and you know, created a good space for people to hang out and shade as well. And this is the area of the World War I memorial and the fallen detective. That is how that site is designed, and see, I did a 9-patch pattern down here, and that is how that looks right now. And that's how I redesigned it with tulips. This is a front view of my entire design. And this is my elevation plan. My total cost for my project is $2,415,878.97. My annual maintenance is around $4,000.
Yep. Jim, I really love your site installation. I think the one thing that I would suggest is, I think I would have liked to have seen them before I saw your concept.
Okay.
Only because it's like you took these really valuable kind of cultural clues from the site, like, oh, this is what they value, this is what, you know, and I just love that you saw those things and like captured that. But it felt like, oh, well, patterns. Yeah, it just felt like, well, once you find those clues, then you use those clues in your design work, right? Right. And it's not that you didn't, just that the slide was in the wrong place.
I can explain it better if I put it in the front.
Yeah, because then it's like, it makes this logical sort of like, yeah, this is what I saw, this is what I'm feeling like they're valuing, and this is how I'm trying to include that in my own. I didn't understand the aerial sculpture until you showed that last slide, and it was like, oh, that's what that is.
Yeah, I thought that too, I was like, what?
Yeah, what is that?
So that's still kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I thought about throwing a picture of LaBella Park in there, because that's where, Chris actually told me the idea, we talked about it or whatever, but
Yeah.
it was so hard for me to think about drawing it in my parking sketches and my perspectives, because we did a hand sketch first time. I'm like, man, how am I gonna draw this thing?
Yeah, if you screen or take the opacity, Photoshop or Illustrator down to like 40–50%, so you could see the stuff underneath it. And then people would probably go, oh, I get it. Above, okay.
So here's one thought that just ran through my little brain. I could almost see like all those different parts of the quilt being a different thing that's hung somehow. I don't know how that would work, but like instead of it all being like one giant piece of material, like if they were all the different pieces, but then they form that thing.
Yeah.
Then it starts to talk about the diversity and all the diversity is coming together, and if that's the patterns that bind us together, is that we're all unique, but we all form something together that's bigger than some of our parts, right? Right. Which is part of what I liked about your design. I just thought, well, maybe push that a little bit further. At least consider that. I think those are the main things. There's other things I can talk about in terms of some of your process, but I guess maybe the main thing is that it felt a little bit like a piece here, and a piece here, and a piece here, and then at some point they all it felt like they started to come together. And I would have liked to have sort of seen that process a little bit more, like how you got to those things. But I enjoyed your presentation and your designs, especially like that you went to some places that are a little uncomfortable, and you said, let's look at these, let's not hide these things, let's look at them. It's important to have multiple voices in the conversations.
Something real quick, Sam. Go back to your master plan. I felt like you could have almost feels like I don't know if it's something more to explore. Because you're playing with that whole pattern aspect so much, and so many different elements, I would have liked to maybe see something in concepts, playing with the whole site as a quilt itself, and so that you have these quilt squares in each of these areas. And so, like the hero comment, maybe pulling that in so it's combining with the site, with your quilt pattern, with the fallen detective pouring down there, and start creating symmetry along alignment with that, and then those being different segments of the patches on the quilt.
Yeah.
Really nice to work that in.
That's just something to think about. Together a lot.
How big is that festival area? Like now that we've seen it in perspective, that's the plot must be gigantic.
I think it's about 4,000 square feet.
And this would cover the whole thing.
Yeah.
Dang.
That whole side.
Yeah.
It's like a circus tent.
Yes, almost. Yes, I can imagine the anchoring that has to go down, and something that large,
Well, like if you just had 4 posts in the middle on each corner of the yellow part, that would be the tallest part, and everything else would go down.
That's true.
And it really would be like a circus tent.
And there's everyone probably see shade sails.
Yeah.
And they're actually triangles made out of parabolic curves.
Yeah.
And the reason is they have to be that so you can keep it tense. You can't hang a square because it won't stay tense.
It won't stay.
So, but this work, as you get deeper into it, then you could use that geometry, because like Paul was saying, well, all those triangles could make up a quilt.
You cut the green ones in half diagonally, and then it's basically all triangles, and you make the yellow square 4 triangles.
That would be cool too, because then you can like take some away when you need to, right? If something has to go in there, but you're gonna have to up that maintenance budget, because that town employees are gonna be hating on that. Citizens are gonna love it.
One last thing, related to what Jeff said, and I think there's a couple different members of the studio experiences. So you came to a concept that was the strongest one to you, the quilt patterns. But then as Jeff said, you didn't then, okay, pull back and say, that's how I'm gonna organize my project. And, you know, you did that well, right? You picked something, and then organize the entire experience. It doesn't mean that there still wouldn't be individual experiences within it, like, you know, like the memorial, but you're very close, but you didn't quite say, okay, the whole thing's a quilt, including the courthouse. Maybe the courthouse is the yellow square, right, in that quilt.
Well, that's why what James said, I looked at the whole site as a quilt pattern.
Right.
Hello.
So just whatever, you know, whatever that concept is, right? Take it all the way.
Yeah. It's like you didn't quite commit all the way, like you, okay, I'll do it here, but I won't do it everywhere. And it's not like everything has to look like a quilt, but it, like Steve said, it can be more organized, so it starts to feel like all these things are fit together and create something even bigger and better, as opposed to, well, there's this here, there's this there, there's that there.
I do have a question. Now, you've got the patterns defined info stand
Yeah,
in a completely different place.
well, that's, there
Right?
it is.
Is that the, okay,
It's there.
will it move in your site? I didn't notice if it had moved.
Honestly, whenever I did this the first time, the big complaint was that I had everything up here and nothing back here.
Oh, see, I wonder if that gives you an opportunity to put something else back there that ties you in, that draws you down that pathway from that corner, like the southwest corner, to draw you in on that pathway. Because if you come in that way and you read that information about the patterns that bind, then what, right? Then what do?
Right.
You go down the pathway, you know, like, so there's
But
something
it's
that
like
has
you
to
said,
draw
it's
you
like the
down.
trailhead, one of the trailheads, like you
Yeah.
go there and you go, what? I'm gonna get ready to experience the ties that bind in this space that's been.
Yeah, and that would be like an opportunity to push someone through like that corridor so they pop out into this area a little bit. Because I think it's a little disconnected that it's sitting back on this corner, but there's nothing else there that screams like, here are some quilts or patterns, so. Sorry, but not that. Good job.
I need to go over there and leave, like immediately. Yeah.
Well, it's gotta be a word.
Let's go for day four.
I'm sure, whatever your concept for this.
I know, listen, you just tell me I'll get my ground around my way.
All right, Paul. Yes, sir.
I'll be back. Yeah, stay tuned for this, sure.
Yeah, why don't you open the acronyms back?
All right.
Hi, my name is Elijah Harris. I'm introducing Dex Design, standing for Zaria, Elijah, Carrington, and Sophia. My thesis statement was based upon how the community felt. They wanted unity. They wanted a space where everybody can feel comfortable. Just a basic spot for the memorial place. For my presentation, I'll be presenting Justice Farm. Here's basic information about Warren County. They have Lake Gaston and Lake Cure. The Confederate Monument was placed in 1913 and it was moved in 2020. My preceding analysis about Park Avenue, South Lake Tahoe, California. I chose this because I feel like it related to Warren County. just due to the fact that the community thought it needed more people. They wanted to lighten up the space, so that's why they did this. For my first party diagram, I wanted to emphasize unity. So I thought about the earth and circles, and you'll see in my concept how I use that in my water feature, the surrounding perennial plants. For my second party diagram, I thought about how the community said they wanted to use natural resources. They like lumber, water, and they also wanted the site to be more kid friendly and invite more people. So I thought of interactive art. Right here I have interactive tree art, like river trees that blow in the wind. And I also have another water tree. It is my concept too. The interactive tree art, that's how it would look, sort of. And here's the fountain. And I also have plants right here. For my third party diagram, I thought about a diamond, 4 sections. Unity, enjoyment, community, and conversation. So I thought about putting plants in each corner, just represent that. And here's my third concept, kind of putting everything together. My water feature, lighting, vertical plants. Plants and here's my final concept. I put everything together. Here's my water feature, perennial plants, the interactive tree art, a wooden dome. I place a wooden dome here, and it's rollable too, so when you get to the top, you look at all the features down, and it's called just a spiral because of the perennial plants right here. It's kind of like a spiral. I also have seating. Here's a perspective view. And the qualification, it costs around $500,000.
Go back to your, the first thing is just the map orientation. We want north to be up. I don't see a north arrow on there. I don't see a scale bar on there. So it's hard to tell the size doesn't and what's really going on. Kind of have an idea of that relationship because we've seen several projects to this point. So I have an idea. It's like fields, I mean, in terms of the size of the elements on your site. It feels probably about the right size. I like the individual elements that interact with tree art. The water feature, that one does feel like a little bit quite large for the site.
I also got this, it has like history described. I'm sorry. Like history of Warren County.
Okay, and that's like inscribed around it or on
Described on it.
On it? Okay. I think in terms of overall site orientation, you start to have this language of water feature as a circle, water as a circle. They feel disconnected and pathways. Feel like there should be something there with these sharp angles other than just fire lines. But I feel like a little bit more can be done to where these features are on your site to really start to create corridor of those interactive tree arts. And maybe not have that as kind of this auxiliary pathway, but rather, it feels like something that's really important. And something that you really bring is a big idea. And when you place those trees along that center pathway to the courthouse, and then you create that center artery there, and then have other features, water feature on the side, and maybe think about how those are interacting with like water feature there. It just feels being in the corner, and I know that's where the empty statue base is. But maybe there's another place. We think about water features on the site, we kind of feel like those are kind of centerpieces. And that's kind of shoved off the corner. And as an we have a lot of good ideas. I think the hierarchy design.
I appreciated at the beginning, I was clear that you really listened to the community. Talking about your three concepts, it was, you never said X, Y, and Y. And, in our profession, the challenge is, it takes a lot of time, to convert that to an actual place. So the feeling I get, like looking at your master plan, is I don't see a lot of time. Just things that are not resolved, is that fair? You're correct. But
I do procrastinate a lot. Sure, I'll be honest.
Yes. So I think there's no way around that, because you're listening, so you're hearing what people are saying, but then you got to put the time in. And this is a tough job because people can tell. We can tell, we can tell now looking at your drawing. You can go to people's sites that are built, and they didn't really put the time. It's like, oh man, that didn't really work. So, I think in the end, that's your call. You got to make the commitment. And I know, Chris as a professor, he's definitely need to be on you. So it's not like you're not getting reminded. Like, you got to make the commitment. What's your sense of looking at this drawing now? What are the things? Because you were listening to the community. What's on there that reflects what you heard from the community?
Honestly, I haven't seen everybody else's project. It's not really cohesive.
Yeah.
So I really don't have anything that really speaks for the community. Why?
Yeah. Yeah. So so that's the good part about studios. Hopefully you get pushed by your brothers and sisters in studio to step up to what they're doing. I look forward to seeing you next time.
Sorry.
I'm Carrington Light, and this is my project called Becoming One. So my predecessor is the Thomas Jefferson University Woodbridge Plaza. I picked this site because it has a mixture of concrete and grass. It's a very good mixture. Also, it allows the community in the college to use this site. There's a lot of events hosted. I really just liked how, I also like the idea of them making the space look bigger than what it actually is. And it just allowed people, to have freedom to do whatever they want. So my first part diagram is called Power Division, which took a division side and put it together and makes an addition side. And the idea is it's better to be united instead of divided. My second part T is we stand together. And the idea comes from the people standing in a circle, and the stones are like people of different heights and, ages standing together in a circle. My third part T is called the destination. It came from the idea of Warrenton's trails, and the idea is the fact that good things take time to reach, And so like when you're walking these trails, it's gonna take a time to see these beautiful sights, but once you get there, you're happy that you were able to see it. So looking at my first concept that went along with the power division, I have the addition and division symbol in the middle, and it breaks into some seating areas. There's a history site and a kid's space that was what this design is based on to the quilt patterns that Warrenton is famous for. For the We Stand Together concept, I have a person, because we are people, and it has a lot of entryways that represents openness and, you know, connectivity, and there's a history area, but this design does not feature a kid's site. For my third party, I made the destination for the destination. This is a representation of like a pinpoint in a map, and here is the new fountain, our new memorial area is a fountain, and it's like the heart of the county. Again, this site also has this site also has a history area along with a kids area. Again, based on those famous quilt patterns that Warrenton is famous for. So my original design was called Knitting Each Other. The addition division sign was turned into like two heads and two heads and a body. So one of the bodies have just legs and one of the bodies have just arms, and you put these together, it makes a complete person. So that's the idea of, you know, you need each other to be complete. And the history site is based on the Courthouse steps design, and the kids area is based on the cogwheel design. Looking at my final, is called Becoming One, and I took those two people and made them one. There's a reflection pool, which I was inspired by a fellow classmate. The kids area and history area stays the same, and there's a large seating area that I took the idea of, you know, like the Louvre Plaza, you have this open space where they can just do whatever they want. So jumping to my perspectives, looking into the history area, I have this stone wall that shows the history of Warrenton. There's the seating that are arranged from a protest that took place, and here are some elements that are already on the site. I wanted to put it in the back of the site so I didn't force people to learn about the history, but just gave them the option to learn about the history. For my second perspective, looking at the reflection pool, it has the Warren County symbol in it. You see the fountain in the back, the flags are moved. There's planters around these long bench seatings and the Christmas tree is centered. Looking at the other side, again, just that huge open space, kids can run around, people can sit on this stone wall, just giving the freedom for the community and for the courthouse. And for my kids area, you have these plants centered around the kids area that kind of provides protection from them running into the street or from any strangers, a sense of closure. And there's like these stone things where kids sit on, and benches, other elements. And looking at my section cut, I wanted to draw a section cut from the front of the site to the back because I wanted to show that dip that the kids area is going to have. Reason why I use the muhly grass, because it's a great absorption of water. And I also wanted to take note of the cars only being in this perspective because I wanted to reroute that highway traffic and only allow cars to pass at the front of the site. My planting material is about $900. Paving materials are about $65,000. Site materials around $185,000, which is around $186,000. My tow supplies $250,000. Installation $375,000, around $376,000. And for the 35 contingency is around $219,000, and the total cost rounds up to $845,000. That is all I have.
Before commenting, could you go back to your original design and just explain a little bit more of the transition from your original design to your final?
I actually got help from Chris because he said it looked like an ant. So originally the design was just to have two planters. Like I said, just the idea of like two people kind of just being separated. So it wasn't really much of a story, it was kind of plain. And it was going to be like summer plants on this side, so it will bloom in the summer, and then winter plants on this side. So it's like throughout the season, different parts of the site comes to life. And in the middle, which is evergreen, so it's always a constant flow.
And then you trip and then throw your next one.
And then it just basically turned into, instead of like two people, it was just one. But at the same time, it's still split in half. You know, like you still have the legs at a certain part of the site, you still have the arms at a certain part of the site.
So, I think, yeah, I think a good exploration of concepts, and I sounded drawn toward this concept of the human body and something that unifies us. When you were talking about your different concepts, though, you were talking about different sets of symbols.
Mm-hmm.
And mostly, I don't think you got beyond talking about symbols. So, for example, like West African architecture is often based on the body, but the different pieces of the body have functions. Right? So, like the place where you cook food is where the head is.
Oh.
All right. So it is shaped actually somewhat shaped like a body, but it's not just a symbol.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Where you do work is where the appendages are. Right? So I think you go that if you want to capture something like the body, it has enough of a function that then it relates back to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Because again, no one's except the person in the plane is seen it from above, right?
Yeah.
And even so, yeah, we don't know what it means yet until. So just think about it. You transfer the concept to.
So just like do more research on different cultures and.
Yeah. Or it could be cultural, or it could be function. So you're actually engaging people, right? So it's not just that it looks like a body, but somehow it acts like a body.
Yeah.
And then how does it act like a body? Right? Now, my sense was your how much focus you put in on different elements was really different, and I don't know if that's the story of your semester, but it came out that way, so that your concepts were presented not, they were not very well scanned drawings, didn't seem to be put together well, and the orientation on your drawings changed here at the end, so it just, there's clearly a bunch of time put on in here, but I don't think your commitment was clear for that, and that it undermines your work.
Yeah.
That's not clear.
Yeah, I went to the same place as Steve, like, how did you get there? Like, I saw everything, and then this was like, whoa. And what I love about it is that there's this amazing juxtaposition between this kind of big open space that's sort of free form, do whatever you like.
Yeah.
And then this other half that is like really structured and in a sense requires people to come to a point together, right? Like everything sort of, and the whole thing, like at the very north end there with the triangle at the top that has the circle in it. I'm not quite sure what that is.
This?
Yeah.
This is a head, but this is just holding the Christmas tree.
Oh, the Christmas tree, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so then that even kind of works too. Like it's like there's this whole interesting thing that started to happen there. And I like that you were inspired by somebody else in your studio and like, oh, I love that shape. Like how did I use that? So I can see sort of how you got there. But the bottom line is the end result is really intriguing to be like, well, it feels like that's a space I want to explore. And it lends itself to multiple uses. Cool.
Thank you.
Your whole experience throughout the semester and how you ended up here out of school.
And so you're sitting there, this is a challenge. Like, good to be intriguing. Like, you don't want your site to be a one-liner where, oh, it's a lizard. And then they're going to get all one lizard part, right? So it's good because so people would say, what's going on? Why is this kind of shape? But then at some point they need to figure it out without asking for design. All right.
I'm so sorry. All right. Almost done.
Yeah, first off, before you start, I just want to say yay to everyone who's going last because it's hard after a long day. Sorry, you know, there's one more person.
One more.
Yes.
So we're gonna, Paul, Jeff, and I get more interview before we listen to both.
Yeah, we're here.
Right, because just know that you've been waiting patiently, listening to everybody. So we're here.
All right, I'm Zaria, and this is my project called Connecting Back to Nature. So, first, my president analysis was on the pre-street corridor. It's in Nebraska. The reason I chose is because they also had the same problem with at night. Nobody would really go there and it'd be kind of dead, and really it would be only the reason why it would be visited because people live there. And it's the same thing that's happening in Warren County because at a certain time of day, young people that are there are the people that live there and not really stuff going on besides, you know, the traffic because it's a highway. So my first concept, it consisted of the existing trees that are already there because it's already hard to get rid of such big trees. And so what I did was I just moved the memorial, like I made it bigger, and then I'll go into detail what it looks like. And then I added a little pavilion kind of thing back here with seating area because nobody goes back there. And then just for greenery to add to it because it was kind of not plain, but it was like it just needed to be revamped. My second one consisted of more seating areas in the back, and then a little seating area around the memorial site because it was more of just an empty space, not really sitting areas, except for like on the sidewalks. And then the bell and the flags were moved into a easier spot because they were kind of in this awkward position right here. And then I also added a little concrete slab because they do festivals and food trucks and then movie nights. And because nobody likes sitting in the dirt, so I just put like concrete there. Plus they have like an ant infestation, so that was just, you know, what I thought. And then my third and final one, more vegetation around the front areas, and then just another concrete slab back here because just, you know, extra space from here to there. And then so the main focus was the memorial because that's what brought us to the whole thing, was that they wanted to get rid of the memorial and make something else. So they said they wanted rock and water as to be the natural resource there. So my main thought was to make a little rough water thing that you see in hotels that is like a sheet of rock, and then it's like water. Mine was kind of an earthier rock that I made. It's like little 6 foot tall. And then around it, so also the rock goes like a U shape kind of, but you don't really see it until you're actually over there. But around it, it would be footprints starting from like right here and right here. It'd be baby feet, and then it grows into adult feet that are faced in front of the rock wall because there's generations that live there. They've been living there since the beginning. So just to show that people have been there for a while. So this is my render map, and the plants that I used was crepe myrtles, Tindo viburnums, burning bush. And then I also added on this slide was the Lake Gaston print, just to show a little area around there. And then also with the memorial, I added the sun quilt pattern with the colors, so the colors will be shown throughout. Also the same with the feet footprints, those colors from the patterns. And then so my first perspective was looking from the middle to the memorial. And there it is, my drawings and stuff, and flags and trees and the rock wall. And then my second one is facing from the street where the lights are and facing that way towards the building. And there is more closer look at the rock wall and the feet footprints and then the trees. And then here's my section cut from the front, see kind of where the spacing is between those. And then my total cost would be $61,000. And then my planting materials about $1,000, paving $1,200, and then yes, and that is all.
All right, can you go back to your the one that shows going from concept 1 to 2 and then to 3?
Oh, this one.
Go back. But the concepts.
Oh, my fault. Sorry.
Yeah, so go back one more. Okay, so, oh, no, the other direction.
Sorry.
To one, yeah, there we go. So there's concept one, right?
Mhm.
And I think I understand what's going on in terms of like the coloration. The color, the yellow color is where you walk.
Yes.
And then what are the other little squiggly white areas in between the green, what looks like maybe trees? Just trying to figure out like what is your.
I kind of colored it wrong because this kind of the bubble map of it. So
Okay.
like, I just colored it, I just made weird
All right, got
squiggles,
it.
yeah.
All right, so then go on to 2. All right, that it's, I think I sort of get what's going on, but it's kind of like, well, so then you jump from one thing to, like you're on one thing and you have to jump over to the next thing, is almost what it feels like. And I realize it's sort of a bubble diagram, but of like uses. But then go to the third one. Then it's like, well, okay, it's starting to kind of tie things together, but then it doesn't quite tie everything together. So I'm curious, if you go on then to your concept, like your master plan. I think it sort of your master plan ends up showing kind of like what's in your conceptual stuff, right? Like it sort of ties everything together, but for instance, like the concrete slab is kind of just out, right? You can get there from the front street, but it just feels a little bit like there's elements that are kind of stuck in the landscape as opposed to all of it kind of working together as a system, you know, right? I mean, part of it works. Yeah, I would say that the thing that really excites me the most, if you go to your hand-drawn three-dimensional images, I just think I'm starting to get something there. Go to the next one. I really like that. That's starting to tell me something. And I love that you put so much into those. It just feels like this beautiful piece of art to me. Like you really put something deep into that. And I feel it. And I feel like, okay, I understand what that's starting to say. Like even the person that's got their hands in their pockets, their head down, they're kind of walking on these footprints. I'm really starting to feel something. So good for you. You spent so much time. You're obviously an artist of some kind, and really put a bunch into those images. What's the third one look like? That's more of a machine kind of thing. Although it's nice to be able to see the section and see sort of the distance of space between different elements. But boy, when you showed me that second picture, I just went, well, okay, now I get it. Now I understand what's in her mind and how that looks and feels. So good for you. Nice job pulling that together.
I think a lot more information, concepts, kind of just exploration of circulation, like go along with different spatial programming. Because when you have that kind of bubble diagram, it's important to see how spaces relate to each other. But it's also really important to show on there how people are moving from space to space, getting from element to element. And that's another layer of information that really helps inform your design students, why things in place where they are. And as opposed to saying, well, this is a concrete slab of one of the lakes. The memorial slab was over here, so we're looking at something actually there. But I think you also want to question, where that statue was, did that work in the original design of this space? Is there a better place for it? Does it need to be there? Is there something more you can do with it? Is there a place that can be better served to have this bit of central idea of this rock wall, maybe more center of your site? It's bringing people in from the outside. But, is that as far as they want to go, is there any reason to ask that? And so I think play around with those ideas a little bit more and go back to those concepts, look at how things work together, how we plan for like, and then create those destination spots or reasons for along further in.
We have time to so just to build on what Paul and Jeff were saying, maybe one of the challenges, if you go back to your concept, get back to your concept, is that bubble diagrams can be dangerous if you don't remember that they're just bubble diagrams. So the bubbles are functions, not things. So I think what part of the challenge here is it's kind of a combination of a bubble diagram and a plan. And that's dangerous because what it starts to do is have you have things in bubbles, which is what happens in your concept, right? The things are still in bubbles. Whereas a pure bubble diagram is play, gathering, food, and so you're just talking about what's happening. It's not a thing yet. So I think that would be really helpful to make sure that you stop drawing bubbles when you're starting to talk about objects.
Thank you for finally saying what I was trying to say.
I've seen it, you see it happen with, like the press was there, you see it happen with professionals. So you can tell that the final build thing looks like a bubble diagram. Because you almost have to put the bubble diagram on the wall and say, now I'm actually going to draw things, and then it changes.
Instead of just ideas about what's going to happen there.
Right. So then I just want to highly commend you on if you go to your second perspective of your memorial, your spot. But here's what, I've been trying to talk about, hopefully some success. So here's something that's really interactive, as you've got the contemplative guide walking around, and it's not an easy thing to do. You've replaced this actually militant, aggressive 1913 memorial, and it was really good that one of your classmates brought it up. It was only in 1913 for why they put it there. It's something that's timeless, right? A whole other. So, and then having people walk around it, so it becomes almost like a ritual. I think that becomes landscape architecture rather than just a monument. People are going to walk around it and think. So I think that's really successful. Yeah.
What he said.
Right. Yay to the person who goes last. Yay! 5 extra points.
That's good. Good evening, my name is Sophia Smith. This is my project called Unity Plaza. My precedent study was done on the Barangaroo Reserve, and it's 14 acres, and I picked this one because I liked how basically the concrete slabs and an elevated surface like just basically a work of art, and it resonated. So this is my first party sketch, my concept. There's this design like fundamentals thing on Airbnb design. I don't know if you guys know it. It has like 3 steps to challenging like how you think about design culturally and socially. So the first one is balance your bias. So when you think about balance, you think about yin yang, you think about the Libra scale and everything. And so I sort of used the Libra scale to really, I incorporated that into my design for justice, balance, and all of that. Oh, so this right here is a sculpture of 5 like mirror, like they're reflective mirrors, but they're one-sided. So when you look at it, like on one side you just see yourself, and then on the other side is the person on the other side, and they see you. So it kind of represents each other, like balance. Okay, so this one is about growth. And one thing that stood out to me with growth is the snake. And I know a lot of people have this like idea that, oh my gosh, the snake, bad. But I really wanted to challenge that with this design because it's almost the idea of what you know isn't always going to be like what the standard is, which is what makes design so subjective. So I use the snake because snakes can symbolize healing, growth, and transformation. And it's also on the Halawasaponi seal. I apologize for not having a picture up here, but this was my design for that. At first I was thinking of having 2 fountains, and they were going to be snakes, but so basically these snakes would be looking at each other and kind of like keeping each other in check type of thing. Right here, you're gonna see this in all my designs, but these are paragolas. I don't know if I'm saying it right. And basically they're like peace walls. And then the middle here is where the World War II and Texas Memorial is. And then on this side over here is just the city of Memorial. And this right here is a community garden. That's regular walking park. So this concept is about considering the opposite. And you have that and just this like idea of like flipping. And this design is like, it's kind of about like merging yourself with other people in order to fully understand how they function and what they need to do. So after, this was my final at first, but I noticed there was no space to have really good functions and everything because this yellow, all that yellow is just plants. So if you were to try to have something on this, you wouldn't really have space for that. So I changed that into this area, more of just like a more open area for advanced study. So this is my perspective, and you're looking at it from this point of view. And this is an open area, open-ish. But these are like screening things, and this is a paragola. I'll see you under that here. So this is my master plan. And this slide is about these 2 paragolas, the peace walk area. So this one's about this little garden here, and I really wanted to incorporate like the amount of plants. This is why you're gonna see later. But my quantifications, when you look at my plant section, it's like a lot because of the amount of biodiversity I wanted on my site. So this little area, come in here and it's just like a little peaceful garden. It's kind of like a Zen garden. I really wanted it to look like this. And I took the idea of like that roundabout. These are seating areas, and that's where my sculpture is going to be. This is another seating area, and that's the paragraph. I liked this design. You have a path, and then you have like just like different kind of material. So I used that right here. This is inspiration for my community garden. Plants and vegetables. Oh, so these are 2 fountains. They're not going to be snakes. They're going to be more of like just figures that kind of they don't really look like snakes, but they're. I'm sorry, I wish I could. This is my qualification. My planting material cost. My supposed this.
Awesome. Can you put your final master plan? Actually, you can go back to your concept. So I like the way that you've explored everything, going from kind of more formal, traditional garden space, and that's not good from your classmates as well. And it's it is a formal space right now currently. So, just thinking one of the first concepts is to play around with that normal garden shape, and then transitioning to the other side of the second concept. And if you go to the second one, where we've gone completely the other direction, done fully organic form, with this snake sculpture on the ground, something really cool and opportunity, and you're relating it to the steel for the Native American tribe. But something else, now I'm from Indiana, and the Native American tribes there are really one of the big features of the landscape are burial mounds. And, so when I see something like this, immediately I'm thinking about the Native American burial grounds, and these are raised structures of earth and massive earthworks that are in the landscape, and there's mounds of earth in these shapes, like say a snake. And so I think when you're looking at this, you have that opportunity, especially when you go into your final master plan, that you have
This one or the?
whichever. Other. But you have that pathway that's taking that shape, but then topographically, I think you could really play with that mound structure and bring another element into the space and create these really intimate spaces for the walkway. And then have these mounds that then also double as, just lawns that people can sit on. And then another thing to look at is looking, if you were to just take this, put a layer of trace over it and then go black and white and look at positive and negative space, I think you find a lot more space in between everything for those gathering spaces that you thought were missing from your previous concepts. And then you wouldn't necessarily need to go with a massive gathering space on one side of your design. That you could find these gathering spaces for a town that is only 800 people, where you only have maybe 10 to 12 people at a time in that space, and you could easily find those little pockets of infinite spaces that are large enough to fit the number of people that but overall, the integration of the planting material, hardscape, softscape, really cool design ideas that you have here. Everything kind of meshes really well together. Really awesome ideas and organic shapes. And overall, I think it goes pretty well.
Well, will not repeat what Jeff said, but I happily support it. But I was looking at on my phone was an example which I think really relates to your work, and it's both a compliment and a challenge. So I'll show it to you later. So we're looking at the Getty Center in Los Angeles, and the overall landscape of the Getty Center is designed by L'Oreal, who's one of the top 10 landscape architects. The main garden is designed by an artist, William Penn. And I think your work looks like the William Penn work. It's this incredibly thoughtful articulation of a concept as a garden. But when the landscape architects visit the Getty Center, they're like, yeah, but it doesn't actually connect to the circulation, and how does it actually work? And all the things that Rory Owen had to think about when he was designing the whole place. So I think that's the challenge. That you did a beautiful job rendering that concept, but really it's an art piece that is alive. And interestingly, landscape architecture is that, but it also has to really work. So people have to be able to walk through your art, going where they want to go, not only, and it has to relate to the surroundings. And your site is actually more than just this space. And like the Getty, William Penn gets to just design this one little spot. He didn't have to deal with the fact that the library was over here and the museum was here. The bathrooms were there. He just had to do his cool thing. Right? So I think there's the challenge right now. The garden's amazing, and hopefully you have any family in Los Angeles, or we get to visit up there. We'll do a field trip because this is totally like that garden. But then that's that, to be a landscape architect, then to connect this to everything around it. And so it's equally artistic, but it also is a functional piece of people's everyday life.
I'm just blown away by your work. And I'm just, it's so, there's a level of sophistication that just really inspires me. And like when you pulled up that same thing, I just like couldn't believe it. It was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And then to see how you've woven a lot of those things into it, I mean, it's just a beautiful piece of art. And everything that Pete said and Jeff said is true. Like, there's still the whole functional, practical sort of element to it. But man, the freshness and the beauty, and like just even your rendering style. This is this marker.
No, it's okay.
Well, it's beautiful. That one little three-dimensional thing. I mean, there are some. Can you go back to that? It's the one. Yeah, that one. Like, oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
Is that appropriate?
Yes. Yes, something like that. Yeah. I mean, it really like captures like, oh, okay, I'm feeling it. Like there's something there that, and you know, it's like not all of the design things are flushed out all the way. Like there's still more that you could do with all of them, but boy, I'm really looking forward to seeing how you progress into this program because you're starting out with a huge bang here. But I will say one thing, just one little nitpicky thing, like for instance, this pergola thing, it doesn't quite feel like it fits. And then like, if you go back to your plan view for a second, the sort of semicircular pergolas that you have there, it's like just such a simple thing, like, how do I get there? Like, that there should be a pathway there, right? That should be one of the pathways. And I see what you're doing, you're emulating the curve of the sort of brick colored pathway. And I guess you could argue, well, okay, just go out on the lawn and then you walk through it, but
You're right. So this little, it's like, these little tiny openings you can barely see, those are like spaces where you can like go
I
out
see
into
what
it.
you're doing. Yeah.
I should have like highlighted those a little bit better.
Well, even just, you know, like maybe those are like flagstones, that it's a much more informal way to get there, and then you go inside there and it's like a whole new universe inside there. It's beautiful work. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I don't want to go ahead. Wait, I just want to go back to perspective. Totally agree with Paul. I'm not supposed to do this while we're watching the review. I was like, but I want to mention that because it's really helpful to know that you're better off in general doing, it doesn't have to be procreate, but not going beyond this level of detail. Some of the other perspectives we saw earlier, they were really sexy perspectives, but there was so much detail in them that I could see all the things that were wrong.
Yeah.
Exactly. And if you have more time, you'd say, well, what's going, that's not right. But you're not being asked to design those. So for something like this, which is a little watercolory, your concept's clear, I think it's right on target, you know, when you're doing this level of design. Because you never want to put in more detail than you really thought out. That's where you get caught.
Person too, really, yeah, like a sort of shadowy person.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to
I was not finished at all.
Yeah, and you know, then like Paul said, that's where you crossed over the line. So the pergola doesn't work. The scale's not right, and it's not going to hold up. It would need to be steel. Still, it would work. So, but it's more detailed, right? So then you could have made it much more just like vision of pergola. That would have been fine. And then we're not talking about whether it works because it's just a feeling.
Beautiful work.
Thank you.
Thank you.